website, channelafrica.co.za. The sound of Africa is evolving. Experience our new mobile app. Free to download, free to connect.
It is that time to say, wake up with us, Africa. It's Rise and Shine on Channel Africa. From the African perspective, we're broadcasting live from Johannesburg. That's where our studios are in South Africa. Asanda Beda with Peter Ndoro will be with you for the next 3 hours. Let's get our news update first. It is 6 o'clock Central African time. We say good morning to Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African perspective.
Well, good morning, Asanda, and a very good morning to our listeners. It's all systems a go for South Africa's State of the Nation address set for Thursday. The SONA comes at a challenging time for President Cyril Ramaphosa as the country heads into local government elections under the Government of National Unity. A senior researcher at the Southern African Liaison Office, Lwazim Somia, says at this critical period, the president is anticipated to outline new priorities.
President Cyril Ramaphosa not only has to project a level of certainty, but needs to provide direction both to local municipalities, provincial governments, the markets, along with the international community on what are the priorities for the South African government in the coming year and what are the medium-term priorities that will set South Africa on the front foot in terms of creating jobs, growing the economy, and along with dealing with issues around corruption, maladministration, as we have seen in these various commissions of inquiry, and along with the investigations happening at not only at a security level, but at the state administrative level.
South Africa has announced the pullout of its troops from the United Nations Organization Stabilization Mission in the DRC after 27 years of contributing to the UN peace mission. President Cyril Ramaphosa has duly informed the UN Secretary General South Africa ranks among the top 10 troop contributing countries, with a force presence of over 700 soldiers deployed in the DRC in support of the mission's peacekeeping mandate. Presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya.
In a telephone conversation held earlier in January this year, President Ramaphosa indicated that South Africa's unilateral withdrawal decision from MONUSCO is influenced by the need to consolidate and realign the resources of the South African National Defence Force, following 27 years of South Africa's support to UN peacekeeping efforts in the DRC.
Officials in northern Nigeria say there's been a new attack in which 3 security officers were killed and 11 civilians, including a Catholic priest, were abducted. The abductions took place in Kaduna State in the early hours of Saturday. Reports suggest that attackers were Fulani herders who've been accused of a wave of attacks on Christian farming communities. Police in South Africa are investigating the existence of a criminal syndicate after a 4th person of 12 listed as persons of interest committed suicide at the weekend. Andre Pretorius killed himself on Saturday night, just 2 days after an attempted hit on his life. The police former reverse and informant was implicated at the Madlanga Commission by slaying Marius van der Merwe of torturing and killing Emmanuel Mbenze and later dumping his body at a lake. Van der Merwe testified in camera at the commission as witness D. Pretorius was one of 12 people listed as persons of interest by the police and the 4th to die since 2023. Police spokesperson Athlenda Mate says 2 of them, including Van der Merwe, were killed execution style. Mate explains.
Police confirmed that there was a shooting incident at a filling station in Brakpan just before 10 o'clock on Saturday evening, where a 41-year-old man allegedly took his own life. All role players, including police detectives and forensic experts, attended to the crime scene. This matter is under investigation.
Lastly, Russia's security service has extradited a man from the United Arab Emirates after accusing him of trying to assassinate a senior general on Friday. he'd been detained in Dubai. Russia's Federal Security Service named him as Lyubomir Koba, a Russian citizen who'd said to have been born in Ukraine. The BBC's Danny Eberhard.
FSB video footage shows a blindfolded, handcuffed man being taken off a plane by masked agents. Russia accuses Lyubomir Koba of shooting Vladimir Alexeyev 3 times with a pistol fitted with a silencer in the general's apartment block. The Kremlin says President Putin spoke last night to his counterpart in the UAE to thank the Emiratis for their assistance. The FSB has also named 2 other alleged accomplices, both of them Russians, a man who was detained in Moscow and a Ukrainian-born woman who it said had escaped to Ukraine.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 101 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, we'll have all the results from the CAF Interclub competitions from the weekend, while Erling Haaland's penalty seals City's Anfield breakthrough. I'll tell you more at 6:30.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine, every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
It's 6 minutes past 6 Central African time. A very good morning to you. If you've just joined us, you have just landed on the right place to keep you up to date with news and current affairs and start your morning, your Newsday morning with us. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa, broadcasting, streaming on the internet. channelafrica.co.za is where you can find us. And also on your mobile apps, just go into your app store, look for SABC Plus, that's SABC PLUS, and then look for Channel Africa, and of course Rise and Shine, and not forgetting our social media platforms. So look wherever you may spend your time on social media, look up Channel Africa and we'll probably be found there as well. A very good morning. I'm Peter Ndoro.
Good morning. I'm Asanda Beda.
Hello, Asanda.
Happy Monday.
Yeah, did you have a good weekend? I missed you on Friday.
Yeah, had a great weekend.
Oh, fantastic.
It's always good to take some time off and take a short left, as we call it in South Africa.
Yes,
when you keep it
indeed.
within the country, travel is called short lefting.
Yeah.
It's great to be starting a new day. It's a good morning and a Monday morning as we enter this new week in February. It's the 9th of February. You can also connect with us via DSTV Audio Bouquet, channel 802. Lots of ways to connect and tune in. Talking of social media platforms, there's this AI thing going on. This challenge where people are cartooning themselves and also showing the kind of careers they're into. That's a very nice one, hey? That's happening. Don't know if you've tried it.
Mine is up. I've done mine and I've posted it. So if you're interested, just go check out Peter Ndoro wherever you can find me. And some are better than others.
Yeah.
Mine is quite accurate, I think.
I think yours looks like you.
Yeah.
Mine it does not.
No, it does look like you. Yeah. No, it does. Absolutely.
But anyway, that's the fun thing that we're looking at. Not so fun, though. One of the stories we'll be looking at is fighting, which continues between the AFC and M23 rebels and the army in remote parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo. That's one of the stories we'll also be touching on during our Africa Roundup.
Talking about Africa and important issues on the continent, well, the Africa Mining Indaba kicks off in Cape Town, and we'll be talking to our economics reporter Innocent Samosa about what we can expect at this year's Mining Indaba. And given all the minerals that we have, especially when it comes to things like critical minerals, and the world is really focused on what we have in terms of resources, it's such a big gathering and an important one as well. So we'll get you up to date with the Africa Mining Indaba kicking off in Cape Town.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Every Monday to Friday on Rise and Shine, we bring you a segment of our show. We call it the Africa Roundup. This is a list of stories happening in and around our continent to catch you up in terms of what to expect also in the new week, developments there in the news space. We call this the Roundup, and it's compiled by our team of researchers, our reporters and editors to make sure that you do catch up. So we start with fighting, which continues between the AFC M23 rebels and the army in remote parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo, largely ignored by international mediators. The rising number of wounded is overwhelming local hospitals, including an ICRC-supported facility visited by Reuters last month, which is operating at more than 4 times its 25-bed capacity. Caroline Malone reports.
This International Committee of the Red Cross-supported hospital was caring for 115 patients in January. Dr. Richard Lwanda says that far exceeds capacity.
La demande, elle était importante.
There was high demand compared to available resources. We were cut off from our supply zone in Uvira. Uvira was closed. Burundi has closed its borders. And we couldn't go to Kalem to get medicines. It was very complicated. Fortunately, we had small quantities of medicine stored before Uvira closed, as well as donations from the government and ICRC. This allowed us to hold on during this period.
The AFC M23 rebel group staged a lightning advance last year, seizing eastern Congo's biggest city, Goma, and then the capital of South Kivu province, Bukavu. In December, it briefly went further, taking the South Kivu city, Uvira, near the border with Burundi. The group withdrew under pressure from the US, which had brokered a peace deal between Congo and Rwanda.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa says that the country plans to withdraw troops from the UN peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, known as MONUSCO, following discussions with UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. Now, South Africa is one of the mission's larger troop contributors, with more than 700 personnel on the ground. Defense and security analyst Ricardo Teixeira explains the implications.
If we look at this mission, we've been there since 1999. Okay, we've been there 27 years. In fact, since I believe 2013, we've been there under the Force Interstate Chapter 7 offensive mandate under the UN, one of the longest running ones. And South Africa then in 2014 had great success under the Force Intervention Brigade in expelling M23 from the country in the Battle of Kibati. But we then hung on for another 12 years, and we saw what happened last year when M23 came back and captured Goma again. And it, ultimately, in the long term, we ended up in a position where the outcome that was desired, or what was termed as mission success, that goalpost kept shifting to the point where myself and many of my colleagues were asking, what are we still trying to achieve over there? We were in the DRC longer than America was in Afghanistan. At what point were we going to say we've done what we could and we've done, there's nothing more we can do? And it seems we've gotten to that position.
South Africa's International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola has urged the African Union to take a stronger role in resolving conflicts and called on member states to meet their UN commitments following warnings that the world body faces a financial shortfall. His remarks come ahead of this week's AU summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Next week is the African Union, the Executive Council, which will be followed by the summit on Saturday 14 and 15. But prior to that is a meeting of officials and the Executive Council that will be looking into various issues of the continent, including the reform agenda of the AU itself, its structure, how it should be efficient and function, but also to look into all issues of the continent on peace, issues of Sudan. As we are aware, the biggest humanitarian crisis that the continent is facing. But also South Africa is the chairperson of the C5, responsible to take South Sudan to ensure that the revitalized peace agreement in South Sudan is implemented. And this is a big year for South Sudan because it's a year where they are supposed to go to elections by December 2025.
Now, drought is spreading beyond Kenya's arid north, pushing pastoralist communities into crisis. Dozens of cows and goat carcasses around family compounds illustrate the severe toll on those who rely on livestock for survival. Now, since August, many herders have lost hundreds of animals, with ones that remain too weak to produce milk.
The animals that we have remaining are so emaciated, we do not know how we can revive them so that they can regain their weight. We've lost around 110 cattle, about 300 goats. They were the most affected. We have about 1,100 remaining now.
This drought has been very different from the others we have experienced because we have lost all our cows that we used to milk for our children's consumption. We really depend on our livestock for food, but now it's very tough, as you can see.
The Netherlands has returned a 3,500-year-old sculpture to Egypt after the artifact resurfaced at a Dutch art fair in 2022. An investigation by Dutch police and the Cultural Heritage Inspectorate later confirmed that the piece had been looted and illegally removed from Egypt, most likely during the unrest of the Arab Spring in 2011, before appearing on the international art market.
Our policy is to return what doesn't belong to us and to return it always to the rightful cultural group or country. And so we do live by that as well. It's not just an aspiration. It actually dictates our actions as well.
They should be shown in Egypt. I mean, this is our dignity. This is our pride. The other thing, of course, it means a lot to us when it comes to tourism and economy. Because at the end of the day, when tourists come to Egypt to see these things, it definitely makes a difference.
All right, that's how we come to the end of...
There's another story before we come to the end.
That's fascinating.
So a conservation centre in Oudtshoorn in South Africa's Little Karoo has gained international recognition. The Kango Wildlife Ranch has been awarded a top conservation prize at the World Economic Forum in Davos, honoured for its pioneering use of artificial intelligence to support environmental sustainability. Tanya Krauser has more.
Kango Wildlife Ranch is already known as a leading conservation and ecotourism facility and has now been awarded the Startup Innovation Award for Top AI Sustainability Project at Davos Innovation Week in Switzerland. The project entails ensuring that AI is trained on accurate real-world conservation data to understand, support and protect wildlife and ecosystems rather than harm them.
Since I joined last year, a big focus of ours has been how can we future-proof our facility and how can we future-proof conservation efforts. And one of the solutions that we've come up with is protecting against AI misalignment. And part of that is Project Zoa's solution that we're introducing. And for us on the facility, we've been very excited about it, and we think it's going to help us establish ourselves as a key authority in the new space of conservation.
That's how we wrap up this Monday, the 9th of February's edition of the Africa Roundup. We'll do this again tomorrow on Rise and Shine. It comes after the 6 a.m. news, Mondays to Fridays. Coming up, we'll touch on some of these stories as we get a general roundup of stories happening in and around our continent. As far back as last week, we'll touch on those stories, and we'll be in conversation with our resident analyst on that, Mighty Jamie. He'll be talking to our colleague Peter Ndoro. Stay tuned.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Right, 6:17, 6:18 Central Africa Time. Let's catch up with Mighty Jamie. It's always one of my favourite slots in the week as he unpacks the big stories that have played out in the past week and makes sense of them for us. So, good morning, Mighty Jamie. I hope you had a good week and a weekend.
Good morning, Peter. Good morning to the listeners, the viewers. I had a very quiet weekend. That's how I like them. Hope you had a quiet one too.
It was quiet, but very hot, I must say.
Oh, my word.
All right, so let's start with South Africa withdrawing from the DRC's MONUSCO mission. Should we read anything into that? I mean, it's been decades that we've been there.
Well, you're right, Peter. South Africa has been in this effort for decades. And in fact, that is something that President Ramaphosa mentioned when he made a phone call advising the UN of this particular, decision. I think South Africa has been supporting the peacekeeping efforts in the DRC for 27 years. So the duration is something that's quite commendable. But I do think that there are some dynamics which have caused perhaps this to become a political decision that was inevitable and necessary for Mr. Ramaphosa to take as it pertains to the support of the DRC mission. Number one, I think there's the cost issue. It's a very expensive mission. We've seen that there are multiple contestations around budget issues within South Africa, going into the next budget, which is going to be announced a little bit after the State of the Nation, which is coming up this week. You would anticipate that he was trying to remove from the discussion and from the political debates locally any types of considerations or discussions around the budget as it pertains to the mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. I mean, electricity prices going up in South Africa, a variety of things affecting cost of living. So there's not going to be necessarily an appetite. But we've also seen that there's been a rise almost in sentiment which is antipathic to African communities, some would say Afrophobic, and I think that also could be a driver in the conversation or a sensitivity to the conversation. So that's the first thing. The second thing I think is that the political climate, the geopolitical climate itself is one that would make Mr. Ramaphosa reconsider or really make this particular move. The loss of the South African soldiers in DRC last year, the diplomatic fallout with Rwanda, the current involvement of the Americans, or the attention that America is paying on the DRC, that also could have led to some consternation and maybe some reflection, because you don't want to be getting into Donald Trump's crosshairs in the DRC. And that's something that I think would have been a factor as well. And I think we've been hearing and seeing some indications that there's frustration within the army leadership broadly around funding support, but also there are some leadership controversies around a particular intervention which was held with Iran in Cape Town when they were doing an exercise. And because there's some ambiguity and controversy as to how Iran went ahead with participating in the exercises when Mr. Ramaphosa insisted that, there should be no participation, that could also be something that makes the commander-in-chief pause and think, do I want my troops to be in a place like the DRC if I'm having these internal challenges? Also with the leadership of the army itself, that could be a recipe for disaster. But for completeness, there've also been some scandals around the South African troops themselves over the years. I think at one point some people were fired for running a brothel, Peter, if you recall that story. So I do think it's been a shambolic participation towards the end of that 27 years, the tail end of the 27 years. And all of that maybe requires there to be reflection, re-strategy, if at all they're going to continue to be involved at a later stage in some other African peacekeeping efforts.
Do you think that they're on the same page, the president, the defense minister, and some of the army leadership? Because one gets a sense sometimes, especially when you hear that the president didn't know that this thing carried on, even though he had said that Iran shouldn't be part of this. And then you hear all the time, no, I won't say all the time, it's happened a few times now, where Angie Motshekga is having to either defend or is at odds with some of her leaders under her ministry in the army. What's your take?
It does look as if there's some discord, Peter, and I think that is a cause for concern. It does look as if there are members of the army who are not necessarily respectful or showing the minister the respect that the position itself would accord. This could be driven by the fact that she may not have the military background, which they deem to be necessary to be able to effect the right manner of leadership. And perhaps they've deemed that she has insufficient knowledge of the type of work that the military is involved in over the years. But whatever the source of the disrespect, the disdain, the discord, it does seem as if there has been, a deterioration of the relationship between the government officials and the military officials. And as such, it is a cause for concern. And you are raising valid questions and concerns that I think even the commander-in-chief would be aware of, to say there is some kind of a chasm between my minister and the generals. And as well, I'm seeing that there are very real risks that now are directed towards my office, my seat, and the country from these type of frictions. And to mitigate that risk, it may very well be useful to pull out of missions where you don't have as clear of a line of sight as you would need to be able to maybe crack the whip and get to the bottom of what's going on as the head of state.
Let's go to East Africa now. Uganda and Tanzania met in Dar es Salaam on Saturday to discuss closer cooperation on trade, infrastructure, and wait for it, regional peace. And I laugh naughtily because both of these countries had contested elections recently, and peace really wasn't part of that story.
It wasn't, Peter, and I think you're correct to be tongue-in-cheek when we're talking about these actors and their commitment to regional peace as a starting point, because you are right that there were some very contested elections, elections which by all means appear to have been illegitimate, elections wherein we saw acts of violence, acts of oppression and brutality. But it's a do unto me and not as I do unto thee type of a situation, it seems, because I think what the Ugandan and Tanzanian leaders really may be thinking about are the broader geopolitical and regional issues, not necessarily their hypocrisy in participating in the sustenance and maintenance of peace. Uganda and Tanzania do have relatively strong armies. They have shown themselves at different periods of time to have played a role in various regional issues, such as the crisis in the DRC. I think right now they may both feel as if they're in a corner because of these, irregular elections, which were really shunned by the global community. And as a result of being in this regional corner right now, where they're in the naughty corner from the diplomatic community, they then, I think, have appreciated that they may have to come together and work on some of the issues around trade in particular to make sure that they can try to shore up their economies as a result of some of the fallout which could ensue, because we've seen already that some American government officials are very angry at the Minister of Defense in Uganda. We've seen already people calling for sanctions. We've seen people withdrawing certain amounts of funding in terms of, non-governmental organizations, funding which has been going to places like Uganda and Tanzania. So it may very well be that as things stand, there's more of a tactical appreciation that right now we're in the naughty corner. We need to work together and see what we can do to keep our economies running. And because of the proximity of these two nations, they may be able to, almost absorb some of the economic shocks in the short term if they can come up with a plan that makes sense. But yes, the hypocrisy of them speaking about regional peace when they are not peacemakers is not lost on anyone, Peter.
All right, and perhaps finally, Pope Leo XIV has called for an end to the violence in Nigeria. And there does seem to have been an escalation in abductions and violence, and some of it quite brutal and bloody. We saw a Catholic priest and villagers abducted, 11 others, including a Catholic priest in this past few days. What do you make of this escalation in violence? And whilst maybe it feels localized, this extremist, these militants, it seems to be a regional problem, and maybe a regional solution is required.
It is a regional problem. I don't know if we're at the point now where we'll have a regional solution, because we've seen, the United States of America getting involved at some level. We've also seen that there's an appetite to make this issue a Christian versus Muslim issue, which is something that could escalate divisions in Nigeria and actually create some more regional tensions than are desirable. But as you say, the security crisis seems to be in the northwestern and north central parts of Nigeria. What we've seen, I think recent reports, 150 Christians were abducted from 3 churches in a part of Kaduna in January. They were released last week. And then we also saw gunmen killing 3 villagers, abducting 11 people, including the Catholic priest. And I think this is part of what has led the Pope to also speak about this thing. We've seen, the Catholic Diocese of Kafanchan, where some of these attacks have been happening, being part of the conversation. So if you're the Pope and, your churches in particular being attacked, Catholics seem to be victims of the attack, you will express and voice your concerns. And it is something that has now happened. As to whether or not the Nigerian army and government have the capacity to resolve this, it's unclear. Regional partners also unclear, and this is what may end up bringing the Americans, and we may see it becoming a proxy war as Russia, America, and a few other countries continue to contest for economic hegemony, Peter.
Yeah, not a great story, sadly. Mighty Jamie, always great talking to you, and we'll see and talk to you next week.
Thank you. Have a great week, and a great week to all the listeners.
Thank you so much. That's Mighty Jamie, our regular commentator on political issues across the continent and beyond, making sense of some of the big stories that played out in this past week. He'll be back next week, Monday, after the 6 o'clock news. Right now, though, it's 6:30 Central African time, which means it's time for your news headlines with Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. It's all systems go for South Africa's State of the Nation address set for Thursday. This honor comes at a challenging time for President Cyril Ramaphosa as the country heads into local government elections under the Government of National Unity. The United Nations Peacekeeping Mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, MONUSCO, has expressed its deep gratitude to the government and people of South Africa for their steadfast commitment to UN peacekeeping over several decades. This as South Africa has announced the pullout of its troops from MONUSCO in the DRC after 27 years of contributing to the UN peace mission. And Israel's President Isaac Herzog is in Australia to honor the victims of a gun attack that targeted a Jewish celebration in Bondi Beach. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's catch you up with the full bulletin from the world of sports now. We say good morning again to Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Asanda. Very good morning from the sports desk. So title holders Pyramids FC secured top spot in Group D of the CAF Champions League after a dominant second half performance that powered them to a 4-1 victory over Nigeria's Rivers United on Sunday. Now the Egyptian side overturned the first half deficit at the God's Will Akpabio Stadium in the city of Oyo to clinch qualification for the quarterfinals with a match to spare, extending their impressive continental campaign. Meanwhile, Stade Milan secured their place in the quarterfinals as well after a hard-fought 1-0 victory over Espérance de Tunis of Tunisia in a tense Group D encounter also on Sunday night, while Mamelodi Sundowns' hopes of securing early qualification from Group C were dealt another blow after they played to a 1-1 draw with the Democratic Republic of Congo side Saint Elu Lupopo in a game played on Sunday afternoon. Now, the South African champions dropped points for a second successive match, leaving the group finally balanced with one more round remaining as the pressure intensifies in the race for the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, Kaizer Chiefs, another South African side, they claim a third straight CAF Confederation Cup, a Group D win with a 2-1 victory over Al Masry of Egypt. That match was played at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium in South Africa's Limpopo province on Sunday. Now, Flavio da Silva converted a first half a penalty to give Amakosi the lead before they held off a spirited challenge to secure all 3 points. The result lifts Kaizer Chiefs to the top of Group D, meaning they will advance advance to the quarterfinals if they avoid a defeat against Zamalek in their final group fixture next weekend. Meanwhile, another South African side, Stellenbosch FC, bowed out of the CAF Confederation Cup after a 3-0 defeat to Otto de Oyo in Group C at the Stade Alfonso Masamba Debat last night. Now, Gavin Hunt's men are now 5 points adrift of second place, heading into their final fixture against Singiri Black Stars of Tanzania next week Sunday. Further field now, Erling Haaland's stoppage time penalty gave Manchester City a dramatic 2-1 win at Liverpool, cutting Arsenal's Premier League lead to 6 points. Now, Dominic Szoboszlai's stunning free kick had put Liverpool ahead before Bernardo Silva equalised late on. Haaland then struck from the penalty spot in a chaotic finale that also saw City have a goal ruled out and Szoboszlai sent off after a VAR review. It was City's first away win at Anfield in front of their home fans since 2003, keeping pressure on Arsenal's title bid. Now, Liverpool's defeat further dented their Champions League's hopes, leaving them 6th and 4 points of the top 5 in another match, in that game. So let's hear now from the winning coach, Pep Guardiola.
Prefer to win with an incredible crowd like Liverpool, especially because I don't want COVID back again. For to happen for all the humanity, I would say, but it's special. So this is an incredible tough place to come. So with Arne it's difficult, with Jurgen was difficult. So the quality of they have, the history this stadium has. Of course, this is nice. So we won once. It's the second time we won here.
On to some cricket news now. England survived a scare in their T20 World Cup opener, edging Nepal by 4 runs in a thrilling Group C encounter at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai on Sunday. Now, Harry Brook as well as Jacob Bethel struck half centuries before Will Jacks blasted 39 not out, including 3 sixes in the final over. This to lift England to 184 for 7. Nepal fought bravely, needing 10 runs of their last over, but Sam Curran held his nerve as they finished on 180 for the loss of 6 wickets. It was the team's first ever meeting, the teams England and Nepal meeting in a cricket match, with England's 2-time champions now avoiding an upset to begin their campaign on a winning note. And finally, on the golf course, Patrick Reed won his second DP World Tour title in 3 tournaments with a victory in the Qatar Masters. The American beat Scotland's Callum Hill by 2 shots with a score of 16 under overall, having led from the first round in Doha. The 35-year-old, who recently left Live Golf to make a return to the PGA Tour, won the Dubai Desert Classic about 2 weeks ago and finished tied second after a 3-way playoff, also involving Hill, at last week's Bahrain Championship. Reed, the 2018 Masters champion, started the final round 2 shots ahead of Jacob Skov Olsen. The Dane shot 1 under 71 and then ended in a tie for third with American Jonas Verman. It is 6:36 a.m. Central African Time. It concludes your first sporting update this morning on Channel Africa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, do send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember as well to give us a call. The newsroom line is +27 11714 4459. I'm back with more sports news in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Well, this is it. Today, SABC2 officially steps into its new era. A refreshed channel, a stronger local lineup, and stories and voices South Africans can experience together. The focus is on shared viewing, real conversations, local drama, interactive youth content, language, inclusive news, and big primetime shows the whole household can get into. One highlight is the new lineup is Pimville, a powerful Soweto set telenovela with top local talent, layered characters and storylines built around love, ambition and community life. Definitely one to get into right from the start. The new era is here tonight. Make SABC 2 a night for you.
Es-tu préoccupé par quelque chose? Es-tu passionné par les questions qui comptent? As-tu une voix qui mérite d'être entendue? Eh bien, nous avons la plateforme parfaite pour toi. Téléphone-nous ou fais-nous un WhatsApp au +27 66 408 87 42 et nous te rappellerons. Sois dans la conversation.
Salut Channel Africa, ici Beno le diamant rouge aka Binal Export depuis le Cameroun, le pays des lions. Voilà.
Sois dans la conversation. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de parler, mais c'est ta chance d'exprimer ton point de vue, de partager tes opinions et de t'engager avec une communauté qui valorise ton avis. Suivez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux, visitez notre site www.channelafrica.co.za et préparez-vous à partager vos points de vue sur Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Right, it's time to find out what's been happening in the world of business, commerce and economics. And at the Business News Desk, we say good morning to you, Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. The Namibian presidency says the country will not recognize the purchase of offshore stakes in the Lüderitz Basin announced last week by Total Energies until the oil companies follow the proper route for approval. Spokesperson for the presidency, Jonas Mbambo, has confirmed that until a formal application is submitted and the prescribed statutory process is completed, no transaction can be recognized or considered valid. On Friday, French major Total Energies and Brazil's Petrobras both announced acquiring a 42.5% stake in the PEL 104 exploration license offshore Namibia, as both firms look to develop oil in one of the world's last exploration frontiers. Angola is pursuing a 20% to 30% stake in Anglo American's diamond unit, DBS. A proposal is being discussed with other diamond-producing African nations. DBS, which is one of the world's leading diamond companies with operations spanning Botswana, Namibia, Angola, South Africa and Canada, has been put up for sale by Anglo amid falling diamond prices and the global rise of synthetic diamonds. Angola submitted a bid for a majority stake in DBS in October 2025, though it had initially sought a minority stake. Angola's National Director of Mineral Resources, Paulo Tangana, who is currently attending the African Mining Conference in Cape Town, South Africa, says taking the majority stake within luxury commodities is very risky, looking at the size of the country's economy, adding that 20% to 30% range is a sustainable portion of the economy. Another news, Agri-Western Cape in South Africa says staying ahead of the spread of the foot and mouth disease is imperative to the province's agricultural sector. Premier Alan Winde, Provincial Minister of Agriculture Dr. Evan Meyer, and other stakeholders hosted a media briefing to provide an update on the response to foot and mouth disease in the province. Agri-Western Cape CEO Yanis Stradom says a permit system is under consideration.
In our view, our opinion, the major thing that needs to be implemented now, the first thing is movement control. We've discussed a permit system as well, and we support it, and we will gladly assist the department in managing the rollout of such a system. I think the whole industry is of so much value to the province that we need to contain the virus and then also eliminate the spreading thereof. So, we welcome the announcement of 100 million rand that's been set aside for vaccine, but we leave that to the provincial leaders to take it up with national government on how to procure and to distribute those vaccines.
Airports Company South Africa AXA CEO Mpumi Mpofu has denied that the entity had a planned deal to have a private terminal at OR Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg for alleged criminal cartel kingpin. Vusmuzi, Ket Matlala's company. This after reports that Matlala had been engaging with a private bank to fund a $4.3 million private terminal at the airport. Mpofu briefed the media on AXA's performance during the festive season and future infrastructure development plans. Mpofu also indicated that she has never met or spoken to Matlala.
On our records, we can't find the Ket Matlala associated product. We just can't find it. So the number of possibilities with it is that it was discussed maybe with a former employee that left and were not able to trace it. It's not on our records. But it also became, at least there were indications that it wasn't as if it was his company, it was with another company that might be with us, and they were moving in that direction. We really don't know.
Indian refiners are avoiding Russian oil purchases for delivery in April and are expected to stay away from such trades for longer. Refining and trade sources mentioned this, which is a move that could help New Delhi seal a trade pact with Washington. The US and India moved closer to a trade pact on Friday, announcing a framework for a deal they hope to conclude by March that would lower tariffs and deepen economic cooperation. 3 Indian refiners are not accepting offers from traders for Russian oil loading in March and April. Now let's have a look at financial indicators. $1 in Nigeria is 1,000 naira, 366 Botswana 13 pula 10 Kenya, 128 shilling 45 Zambia 18 kwacha 63. BRICS countries $1 in Brazil 5 real 21, Russia 76 rubles 94, India 90 rupee 43, China 6 yuan 93, South Africa 16 rand 2 cents. $1 is 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Commodities: gold is trading at $5,005, platinum at $2,089 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil $67.31 a barrel. That's all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chandruko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
It's 6:45 Central African Time. We go to Kenya now, where the president of the country, William Ruto, has announced new tax relief measures aimed at easing the cost of living for low and middle income earners. Under the new proposals, workers earning up to $231 a month will be exempt from income tax, while those earning up to $387 will see their tax rate reduced to 25%. President Ruto says the changes will see around 1.5 million Kenyans pay no income tax. Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Samusa has more.
President William Ruto says the proposed tax change aims to boost disposable income, support the middle class, and stimulate economic growth through increased spending and investment.
We are now saying that any Kenyan who earns less than 30,000 shillings will not pay any taxes. That is how progressively we are going to make sure that we manage the cost of living.
Do these tax relief measures genuinely ease the cost of living pressures for low and middle income Kenyans, or are they likely to be offset by rising prices and other indirect taxes? Economist A.B. Ajina weighs in.
By the government raising the taxes, this eventually did see a lot of concern from the public, indicating that the country was already heavily taxed. And the measures that the government has introduced in terms of reducing the income tax, this has been well received across many pockets of Kenyans who have already been saddled with a high cost of living. So by reviewing these taxes, it will be having a profound effect, especially when it comes to increasing household spending and reducing the economic pressures that has continued to be a thorn in the flesh for many Kenyans. Well, looking at the current state of affairs, we do know that quite a number of Kenyans have been experiencing a slowdown.
According to Agina, the measure will ease the burden on many Kenyans as more than 2 million currently pay minimal or no income tax.
Well, this is not only going to ease the pressures on the backs of many Kenyans who have already been agitating for the government to cut down on value-added tax, income tax, and corporate income tax. These are some of the key issues that the government has been trying to address, even as the country prepares for an election in a year's time. Well, this is, of course, listening to some of the projections from the National Treasury. By reducing and avoiding to have this bracket of people paying taxes is not going to have a significant impact, considering right now that the government is looking towards diversifying its revenue-raising strategies.
He adds that this will significantly increase consumer spending.
According to the World Bank, Kenya's economy in 2025 and 2026 was to grow at about 4.9%, whereas the government had projected a growth of nearly 5%, which has been revised downwards. And looking at the latest PMI index, Kenya's January PMI index did show some good numbers at almost 51 points.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samosa in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Right, 6:49 Central African Time, in case you're watching the time. Did you know that Africa has 54 recognized sovereign countries? Now, that actually makes it more than any other continent, each with its own history, culture, governance systems, and economic story. Together, they make up a market of more than 1 billion people. I think it's about 1.3 billion now. And one of the fastest growing regional populations in the world. So when we talk about Africa, we're not talking about one place, but a richly diverse community of nations. 54 countries official. And no continent has that many countries, so we do.
I mustn't ask you, do you know my friend in Ghana? Who's
exactly
so and you're in
oh, he's next door to the guy in Nairobi.
Yes. And it might be 56 with Somaliland if that happens, but we'll see how that unfolds, right?
Yeah. All right, stay with us. Coming up, we are off to Ghana.
Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama wrapped up a 3-day state visit to Zambia on Friday, during which several key bilateral and development agreements were signed. The deals cover priority areas including agriculture and food security, energy, mining, trade and investment, with benefits expected to extend beyond the two countries to the wider African continent. Our correspondent in Zambia is Arthur Davis Sikopo.
He arrived in Zambia with a mission and some immediate results, like waiving off visa fees for the two nations' peoples, and now being actualized as announced during a meeting of the two presidents, John Mahama and Hakainde Hichilema, the host. The visa waiver is also in line with achieving the African Union's Agenda 2063 of having free movement and trade among its member states, as Hichilema and Mahama speak.
Africa does the least trade with itself. It's criminal. It is taboo. It's unacceptable. You look at the size collectively of the African economy, but look at what we do with each other. Very, very little.
The agreements we signed today, especially the decision to allow visa-free travel between our two countries, are more than diplomatic instruments. They are statements of trust.
The visit has also seen 10 bilateral agreements being signed in various areas of cooperation, including health, security, transport, disaster risk management, air services, among others. The agreements see the two countries foster their desired relations, says President Mahama.
Our cooperation in health, education, air transport, defense and other areas reflect our shared commitment to finding African solutions.
Zambia, that has a number of newly discovered gold sites dotted around, is eager to learn from Ghana on gold mining and other minerals, considering that Ghana's GDP is heavily supported by gold and oil.
And we're having challenges on managing the sector properly here. And Ghanaians have been at it for longer. And today we were able to share experiences.
Zambia and Ghana can be described as twins, as they both defaulted in debt repayment, forcing the two to initiate debt restructuring with their external creditors under an IMF program to restore confidence, a path they both took, and progress is being noted. It is by this that both the countries pledged to share ideas on how best they can trade with each other and other African countries to ensure they achieve sustainable and stable economic status. Hijilema speaks.
Debt issues, how they came out of the debt, how we did it ourselves, not completely out of it, restructuring our debts, very similar parts. And we now are saying we want to do more.
Mahama also shares his country's thoughts.
Ghana and Zambia seem to be twins of the same mother, going through the same economic and financial challenges.
The West African leader has also stepped into Zambia's parliament and was given a privilege to address the House as he urged the lawmakers across the continent to prioritize the people they represent above self.
Parliament and the judiciary must work independently in the public interest. Leaders must respect their oath of office to respect the Constitution. In our sub-region of West Africa, democracy is backsliding with a return to military dictatorships. Ghana is, however, on a mission to prove that democracy works.
The Ghanaian leader later visited Embassy Park, the presidential burial site, and paid tribute to late 5 presidents of the Republic of Zambia who are buried there, winding up his tour of duty in the southern African country as he met the business community at a business forum. President John Mahama urged African entrepreneurs to look beyond borders and trade in different countries of the continent. Reporting for Channel Africa in Lusaka, Zambia, I am Arthur Davis Scopo.
Southern African countries committed serious human rights violations throughout 2025, creating vicious cycles of abuse and impunity. This is according to Human Rights Watch's World Report 2026. The report says security forces in Angola, Eswatini, Mozambique and Zimbabwe used excessive and at times lethal force and arbitrarily arrested and detained protesters. Ashwani Badu-Schultz, Deputy Africa Mediator at Human Rights Watch, says Southern African governments are, in many cases, failing to meet their international legal obligations to bring those responsible for human rights violations to justice, creating an environment for abusers to thrive.
What we have found is that there's a trend in between those different countries that we have looked into, and that is that Southern African countries have committed serious human rights violations throughout 2025. And that has created a vicious cycle of abuse and impunity. We've seen security forces in Angola and Mozambique using excessive force and at times even lethal. And they have arbitrarily arrested and detained protesters.
What does the report highlight? Can you give us examples of these abuses?
Maybe I can go into a little bit of details of what happened in Angola by referring to their July 28 3-day taxi driver strike, where police used excessive and unlawful force against protesters, and that has reportedly led to the death of at least 29 people and the injuries of hundreds and the arrest of over 1,200 people in different provinces in Angola. In that month itself, in July, Earlier, the police had fired tear gas and rubber bullets, had assaulted protesters, had injured several people, and carried out arbitrary arrests while dispersing peaceful crowds. Now, this was the same trend that was observed in Mozambique, where following the October 2024 elections, the violence and the excessive use by security forces and them using lethal force and arbitrarily arresting protesters continued until March 2025. And our research showed that from October 2024 to March 2025, unidentified gunmen, some wearing security force uniforms, shot dead at least 10 opposition party officials. And there's still no accountability, be it for the Angola one or for the Mozambique one. So for the Angola one, they had announced investigations, but till now nothing has been done. For the Mozambique one, investigations have started, but there's no results yet. So that's one aspect of human rights violations that we have found, which is security forces' use of excessive force. And we've also investigated a little bit about how there has been lack of justice and accountability for the 2021 June unrest in Eswatini. So this is like 4 years later, where people were killed, people were injured, but there's still no accountability in 2025 or even 2026 because nothing has been done till now. The other issue that we have found is that the authorities have severely restricted freedom of expression, association, and assembly.
That was Ashwani Badu-Schultz, Deputy Africa Director at Human Rights Watch. She was speaking to Channel Africa's Nhlanhla Mahlangu.
Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Indeed, you're listening to Rise and Shine, and starting in a few seconds' time, the second hour of the program with Asanda, Beda and Peter Ndoro. But first, let's catch you up with the news at 7 o'clock. Here's Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. It's all systems go for South Africa's State of the Nation address that's set for Thursday. This sauna comes at a challenging time for President Cyril Ramaphosa as the country heads into local government elections under the Government of National Unity. A senior researcher at the Southern African Liaison Office, Lwazi Somya, says at this critical period, the president is anticipated to outline new priorities.
President Cyril Ramaphosa not only has to project a level of certainty, but needs to provide direction both to local municipalities, provincial governments, the markets, along with the international community on what are the priorities for the South African government in the coming year and what are the medium-term priorities that will set South Africa on the front foot in terms of creating jobs, growing the economy, and along with dealing with issues around corruption, maladministration, as we have seen in these various commissions of inquiry, and along with the investigations happening at not only at a security level, but at the state administrative level.
The United Nations peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, MONUSCO, has expressed its deep gratitude to the government and people of South Africa for their steadfast commitment to UN peacekeeping over several decades. MONUSCO also indicated that it had informed the UN Secretariat of President Cyril Ramaphosa's decision to withdraw the country's remaining SANDF contingents and troops. Sean Bryce Peace reports.
MONUSCO also thanked South African peacekeepers for the dedication demonstrated in support of its peacekeeping mandate in eastern Congo. The mission statement also paid tribute to those peacekeepers who lost their lives under the UN flag in the service of peace in the DRC and honored their service. MONUSCO said it looked forward to continuing to engage South Africa on broader peacekeeping issues, including lessons learned and continued support to efforts aimed at advancing peace and stability. It also promised to manage the transition in a safe, orderly and responsible manner in line with UN operational requirements.
A new witness will take to the stand at the Madlanga Commission in Pretoria, South Africa this morning. The Commission has recently heard testimony from police officials who have been implicated in corrupt activities within law enforcement agencies. They include the head of the Priority Crime Investigations, the Hawks, in the KwaZulu-Natal Province, General Liseja Sinona. The Police Service Section Head of Quality Management, Brigadier Rachel Macheng, as well as Witness F. The Commission is probing allegations of criminality, corruption and political interference in the police and criminal justice system. Sbahle Mota reports.
The Madlanga Commission has in its interim report recommended to President Cyril Ramaphosa that certain officials from the city of Ekurhuleni, including Metro Police officers, as well as certain South African police members, must be investigated. These law enforcement officials have been implicated in corrupt activities within police agencies. A task team has since been established to investigate those who have been implicated in corruption. The task team, which comprises of SAPS investigators and NPA prosecutors, has been given 3 months to conduct its work.
Officials in northern Nigeria say there's been a new attack in which 3 security officers were killed and 11 civilians, including a Catholic priest, were abducted. The abductions took place in Kaduna State in the early hours of Saturday. Reports suggest the attackers were Fulani herders who'd been accused of a wave of attacks on Christian farming communities. And lastly, Israel's President Isaac Herzog is in Australia to honor the victims of a gun attack that targeted a Jewish celebration in Bondi Beach. Herzog has laid a wreath and 2 stones from Jerusalem at the site of the mass shooting during which 15 people were killed in December. He has condemned the attack.
These vile terrorists specifically and deliberately targeted our sisters and brothers, Australian Jews. Yet, this was also an attack on all Australians. They attacked the values that our democracies treasure: the sanctity of human life, the freedom of religion, tolerance, dignity, and respect.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Oneli Tsinzi.
SABC News. Perspective.
And coming up, news this hour, Pyramids FC and Stade Milan win to seal quarter-final places in the CAF Champions League, while South Africa are crowned HSBC Perth champions. I'll tell you how they did it at 7:30.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine, every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
As we enter the second hour of Rise and Shine, we say good morning to you if you've just joined us. Thank you for doing just that. We are Channel Africa, broadcasting live from Johannesburg in South Africa. That's where our studios are. From the African perspective, we broadcast from there. In this hour, we have a few things to look at. One of them, we take you to the Cape Town 2026 Investing in African Mining Indaba. That's kicked off. We'll catch you up in terms of what's happened on the first day or what one can expect to happen on the first day. We'll be linking with our economics reporter there, Innocent Simusa, joining us with the latest. You can connect with us on channelafrica.co.za. On YouTube, we live stream there at Channel Africa 1 is our handle. And the SABC Plus app is where you can also connect with us, as well as DSTV Audio Bouquet, Channel 802. You excited about the Indaba?
Do you know what? I used to follow it a lot, very closely. I must admit, not so much in the last few years, but this critical minerals issue has become quite a thing. So I am interested now exactly where we're going to position ourselves with regard to that. So I'll be following it this year with a bit more interest. But we're also looking at, and I'm not sure if you're experiencing that where you are across the continent, but apparently global food prices have decreased for the 5th month in a row. We're going to find out what is behind that, and in fact, if that's what we're experiencing across the continent.
Does global exclude South Africa?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I certainly am
seen it.
not feeling it. So that's what's coming up on Rise and Shine this hour.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
So, a non-governmental organization in South Africa, Africa Tikkun, which deals with the empowerment of youth and children in the country, has stated that in February, nearly 5 million youth in the country will systematically disappear from the economic landscape. Now, they say this is because tertiary institutions won't be able to accommodate all the school-leaving youth, and others will not be able to find jobs. Now, the organization highlights this as the country prepares for the State of the Nation address by President Cyril Ramaphosa this week. President Ramaphosa is expected to touch on youth unemployment. According to Statistics South Africa, only 4.7 million youth were employed in the second quarter of 2025. Sisi Sehalo has more for us.
Statistics South Africa has revealed that the youth aged 15 to 34 remain vulnerable in the labor market, while the unemployment among 15 to 24-year-olds is sitting at a staggering 62.4%. Non-governmental organization Africa Tikkun says youth unemployment is a challenge in the country. They say many youth this month will be idle as universities continue with their business and the other youth will not find employment. The Chief Operating Officer at Africa Tikkun, Tiani Muslaba, elaborates.
Historically, if you take those numbers of young people who get lost into the system, either they're out of employment, they are not in training, they are not in any education or post-school education system, that number compounds. And currently, as per SSA statistics, you're looking at nearly 5 million young people who will disappear from the country's economic landscape.
Africa Tikkun says the most devastating barrier facing South African youth is not lack of education, but its lack of experience. According to the organization, the youth find themselves trapped where they cannot get employment without experience. On the other hand, they cannot gain experience without being hired. Chief Operating Officer at Africa Tikkun believes that their programs cater for such young people.
We need to explore a number of pathways, learnerships, vocational training, work experience. And in particular, I think the TVET colleges in particular are largely underrated. And I think as parents, as cousins, as nephews, as mentors of these young people, as uncles and aunts, we need to be open. We need to be frank with our children. That staying at home and waiting for an opportunity is not a strategy. It's basically a recipe for disaster. We still have a responsibility to coach and guide these young people to take opportunities that will give them skills. And at Africa Tikkun, we've put together programs that give them skills across sectors that are in high demand, including ICT. Call centers, because we have a lot of business process outsourcing companies coming to do, set up call centers in the country, amongst others, but more so even in agriculture. We have an agricultural program where we give young people, real skills, in farming, so that they can go out on their own, which then means entrepreneurship is one other area that we need to basically, focus on to support these young people, mentor them, coach them. We need more incubation hubs,
Meanwhile, the associate professor from the School of Economics at the University of Johannesburg, Professor Peter Bauer, has mentioned that the South African economy is stronger than it was last year. He adds that from a socio-economic perspective, South Africa is in a better position, but it is still facing many international pressures. Bauer explains.
A lot of international uncertainty brought on through the changing global economic dynamics, mostly driven through the Trump administration. But we are also seeing new and stronger trade relationships starting to build between South Africa and China, South Africa and the European Union, and a lot more, shall we say, inter-Africa trade starting to take place. So while the geopolitical, or at least the economic political environment has shifted, South Africa is in the process of developing stronger and better relationships with other regions in the world. And that has also then started to significantly contribute. The rand, as we can see in the moment, is strengthening. The rand has strengthened considerably again from last year. We're sitting around 16 rand approximately to the US dollar, and approximately 19 rand to the euro. However, in terms of the unemployment, especially if we're taking a look at youth unemployment, we are still one of the highest levels of youth unemployment in the world.
Professor Bauer says that with the upcoming State of the Nation address, the country needs to focus on building stronger international relations and developing a stronger investment for foreign direct investors to invest in South Africa and also to stimulate the manufacturing sector. For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekhalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África, com Remo Samo e João Yabalá.
A situação do ativista angolano Serrote José de Oliveira, preso desde julho, tem gerado grande preocupação internacional. Conhecido como General Nila e presidente do movimento União Nacional para a Total Revolução de Angola, Serrote iniciou uma greve de fome em protesto contra a sua prisão, que considera arbitrária. De acordo com a Amnistia Internacional, o estado de saúde do ativista está a deteriorar-se rapidamente devido à falta de acesso a cuidados médicos adequados. Para discutir o impacto deste caso e o estado da liberdade política em Angola, vamos conversar com Dito Dale, ativista e defensor dos direitos humanos.
Nós estamos diante de uma clara estratégia de aniquilar o jovem, porque quando uma pessoa está doente, deve ser assistida. Ao não proporcionar esses cuidados médicos, o que é que o regime quer? Não quer que esse jovem saia livre e com vida da prisão, quer matá-lo.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio do Canal África.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Let's turn our focus now to Cape Town in South Africa, where the 2026 Investing in African Mining Indaba is underway, bringing together governments, mining executives, financiers, and investors from across the globe. This year's discussions come at a critical moment for the continent as Africa positions itself as a key supplier of minerals needed for the global energy transition, while also pushing for greater local value addition and policy certainty. Our economics reporter, Innocent Samosa, is at the Indaba and joining us now to give us the latest. Innocent, good morning. How are you?
Good morning to you, Asanda, and our listeners and viewers at home. It's good to be with you.
Great. And what can we expect on the day? I know it's still quite early. I'm sure the banners are still coming up. The delegates are also making their way there. But what can we expect?
Indeed, Asanda, I would say that the mood here at the 2026 Mining Indaba is, I guess, one of cautious optimism. In fact, yesterday when I was collecting the badge, the accreditation badge, in fact, I was talking to my colleagues in the media space that this year's Mining Indaba, it does look bigger than the previous ones. I guess because of what you just mentioned in your intro, that Africa is now trying to position itself as the producer and a partner in this, in this sector, because there was that general narrative, so to speak, that Africa is not actually a partner in this mineral sector, but it's just a producer. So, Asanda, going back to your question, leaders from across Africa and beyond will be grappling with how to, or better position the continent and how the continent can attract sustainable investment while really ensuring mining delivers real economic benefits locally. But some of the key talking points, Asanda, that I think will be dominating discussions in this year's Mining Indaba is the fact that investment the issues around climate and policy certainty. I mean, a major theme dominating discussion in the previous mining indaba, it has been that of policy stability. Many investors, so to speak, Asanda, they are saying that predictable regulations and transparent licensing processes are pretty much essential in Africa. If Africa is to compete globally, but now that we have energy, I must say that it's a step in the right direction for many companies that are operating in the space. And I'm saying this because the issues of energy transition in the mineral sector, I mean, there's also been a strong focus, Asanda, on critical mineral such as lithium, cobalt, copper, and platinum. This is in the metal groups. So resources and central to electric vehicle, like the likes of your battery storage and renewable energy systems. So those are things will be big talking points moving ahead, but also the issues around local value addition, where we want to see, as I've indicated in our intro, as you indicated in our intro, that African governments must now become the partner in this producing of minerals, and change the traditional model of exporting raw materials with renewable calls for really the issues around beneficiation and local development, so to speak, Asanda.
As you reflect on Indabas previously held, as well as what one can expect on the agenda for this week, and you unpack it nicely there for us in the topics of discussions that can be expected, what are you hoping will be different this time around for the 2026 gathering?
Well, what I'm hoping, Asanda, and I'm glad that you're bringing that question, because we always, as reporters, we always speak about what analysts are saying, what investors are saying, but we don't really speak about what we want to see. And thank you so much for that question. I think over and above, Asanda, the issues around ESG and community impact, environmental, social, and the issues around governance, should be firmly in the spotlight. And I'm saying this because the communities, the issues around water security and mine rehabilitation should be high on the agenda, because in fact, in South Africa, you would recall that the Zamazamas just a few days ago had moved people out of their community because we don't have policies that really governs the communities when it comes to the issues that have to do with mines. So I think also the infrastructure and power challenges, but not only in South Africa. I mean, in South Africa now we do have energy, but the energy access remains a challenge, remains a concern for many African countries, with, of course, several jurisdictions highlighting the need for reliable electricity, for an example, rail and port infrastructure to really unlock new projects, so to speak. But I think high in the agenda, it should be the issue of community-based approach, where they really don't ignore the people on the ground, the people that are essentially impacted by mining productions, Asanda.
Innocent, we'll leave it there for now, and all the best there in Cape Town. We'll be checking in with you throughout the programming at Channel Africa. Thanks for catching us up.
Thank you so much, colleague.
Great. Innocent Samusa there, topping the agenda at the Indaba this week. Are a few topics that he touched on, some reflecting from previous Indabas there. So he's coming to us live from the African Mining Indaba that is taking place in Cape Town. Our very own Channel Africa's economics reporter.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa. Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Okay, to discuss the wider implications of this year's Investing African Mining Indaba, from investor priorities to community impact and the growing challenge of illegal mining, we're now joined by David Van Veek, who's a lead researcher at the Benchmark Foundation, and that's an organization that tracks the social, economic and environmental effects of mining across the continent. David, thanks so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you very much for having us on the program. Thank you, Peter.
So from your perspective, what makes this year's mining Indaba particularly significant for Africa's mining sector compared to recent years?
Well, I think that the theme of the Indaba is stronger together, progress through partnership. But what we are seeing in the global network is Trump and the President of the United States and an increase in resource imperialism, where piracy on the high seas is now acceptable, where you simply take over people's oil ships and so on. Both Iran and the United States have done that. And we see Trump threatening countries, if you don't give us your resources, we will attack you. And we see this in the case of Nigeria and so on. We also see, corporations like Orion and Glencore in the Congo, for example, coming together, and what the Mining Weekly calls profit for peace, when they actually celebrate the relationship between Glencore and the government of Israel, which is not a very peaceful government as far as we can see. Now, all of this comes together in a context where there's a scramble for African resources taking place, and Africa is very resource rich. We've got the European Union, everyone, China and so on, wanting Africa's minerals and resources and wanting to intensify mining on this continent in a race for what is essentially left, because minerals are becoming fewer and fewer and consumption is becoming more and more. We're living in a consumer society that's almost insatiable. And this is bad news for communities, because when government tries to control mining, such as chrome, when they introduced a chrome tariff of 25% last year, we immediately see an intensification of illegal mining in chrome taking place in the Bapong area, for example, but also in Mpumalanga and Limpopo in Sekhukhune, where people just simply come in and they dig up the minerals and so on without any licenses, truck it off, and a very important strategic mineral simply leaves the country.
What's your view in terms of own goals? Because it's one thing for Donald Trump and Western powers to threaten, but sometimes they don't need to threaten. Maybe just coerce with a little lubrication, as it were. How much of the drama that's playing out is our own?
Well, I think that we are responsible to a large extent because we've got reasonably good mining laws in this country, but we don't actually apply our laws effectively. So, we don't regulate, and we also don't plan, for transitions. The world is in a transition. We are in a transition from large-scale mining in South Africa to small, medium, of course, artisanal mining as resources like gold and so on become depleted. Platinum as well is another mineral that is affected. And we see shafts closing down everywhere, workers being retrenched everywhere, without there being any planning for what to do with mining towns and mining infrastructure and so on that is there in the country in areas where minerals are depleted. Yet we issue more mining licenses all over the place, but the mining licenses are not like in the 20th century where the life of mine is 70 years or more. Nowadays, mining licenses are issued for 10 and 15-year operations, even shorter operations than that are immensely destructive, but do not actually contribute much to local development.
So what can be achieved at a Africa Mining Indaba? I mean, businesses and deals are done, but how and if is it possible that problems can actually be solved at a gathering such as this?
Well, I think that we need to get a different kind of gathering together, a planning gathering that says how do we engage in partnership with local communities, the environment, the planet itself, and of course corporations and government. And we actually plan. We actually set down plans for mining, but we cannot plan for what we don't own, and we don't actually own the mines, and we don't actually own the minerals, even though the MPRDA says that the minerals belong to the people of South Africa. I don't think that South Africans have any relationship to ownership as far as minerals are concerned. The minerals are owned by the mining companies themselves. They have got contracts with overseas buyers, and they have very little interest in beneficiation and so on in the country. So we actually need to have more resource nationalism, and we need to plan to increase resource nationalism. That means local control over mining and over the minerals, so that we can get the minerals to begin to benefit South Africa and South Africans rather than it simply being shipped out.
If you had to name one policy reform and one industry practice that could most improve mining outcomes for African citizens, what would they be? What would that be?
Well, I think that in the context of Africa's history, we need to begin to look at African ownership and participation in mining. You know, our country, our people have been excluded from mining except as cheap labor for more than 150 years. That's got to come to an end. We need to begin to have our people being involved in mining, not just as cheap labor. And I think that can significantly change the landscape. And I don't think BEE is doing it. I think BEE is too limited. BEE limits ownership to 27%. In actual fact, it turns the African majority into an economic minority.
All right. So, what are you hoping the message from people like Benchmark Foundation will be at a gathering such as this?
Well, we've got the alternative mining Indaba running on at the moment, and our message is we want there to be greater equality in negotiations about minerals between communities and mining companies, and between the South African people and the mining industry. The relationship at the moment is most unequal, and that is not acceptable.
That's where we're going to have to leave it. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, David. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Bye.
That's David Van Veek, who's at Benchmark Foundation, a mining research organization. He's a lead researcher there, giving us his thoughts on what should be being discussed, some of the things that should be being done. And for me, one of the big ones is we need to own a lot more of the mining process than we do right now. It's 7:30. It's time for your news headlines with Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Jihadist groups are increasingly carrying out drone strikes in West Africa, raising alarm that they are building the capacity to wage a war from the skies. As South Africans ready themselves for the State of the Nation address this week, border crime remains a concern for communities at the borderline between South Africa and Zimbabwe. And Russian Security Service has extradited a man from the United Arab Emirates after accusing him of trying to assassinate a senior general on Friday. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Time now for sports with Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Asanda. Very good morning from the sports desk. So in case you missed it, title holders Pyramids FC of Egypt secured top spot in Group A of the CAF Champions League after a dominant second-half performance powered them to a 4-1 victory over Nigeria's Rivers United on Sunday. Now, the Egyptian side overturned a first-half deficit at the God's Will Akpabio Stadium in Oyo to clinch qualification for the quarterfinals with a match to spare, extending the impressive continental campaign. Meanwhile, Stade Milan secured their place in the quarterfinals after a hard-fought 1-0 victory over Esperance de Tunis in a tense Group D encounter also on Sunday night. While South African side Mamelodi Sundowns' hopes of securing early qualification from Group C were dealt another blow after they were held to a 1-0 draw by DR Congo side Saint Elulupopo on Sunday. Now, the South African champions dropped points for a second successive match, leaving the group finally balanced with one round remaining as the pressure now intensifies in the race for the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, Kaizer Chiefs claimed a third straight CAF Confederation Cup Group D win with a 2-1 victory over Al Masry at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium in South Africa's Limpopo province on Sunday afternoon. Flavio de Silva converted a first-half penalty to give Amakosi the lead before they held off a spirited challenge to secure all 3 points on the day. That result lifts Kaizer Chiefs to the top of Group D, meaning they will advance to the quarterfinals if they manage to avoid a defeat against Zamalek in their final group match next weekend. Meanwhile, Stellenbosch FC bowed out of the CAF Confederation Cup after 3-0 defeat to Otoho de Oyo in a Group C encounter at the Stade Alfonso Masamba Debat. Gavin's Hans men are now 5 points adrift of second place, heading into their final fixture against Singiri Black Stars of Tanzania next week Sunday. While Erling Haaland's stoppage time penalty gave Manchester City a dramatic 2-1 win at Liverpool, cutting Arsenal's Premier League lead at the top of the table to now 6 points. Dominic Szoboszlai, a stunning free kick, had put Liverpool ahead before Bernardo Silva equalised late on. Haaland then struck from the penalty spot in a chaotic finale that also saw City have a goal ruled out as Szoboszlai was sent off after a VAR review. It was City's first away win at Anfield in front of fans since 2003, keeping pressure on Arsenal's title bid. Liverpool's defeat further dented their chances for a Champions League hopes for next season, leaving them currently in 6th position on the log table, 4 points off the top 5. Let's hear from the winning coach, Pep Guardiola.
Prefer to win with an incredible crowd like Liverpool, especially because I don't want COVID back again for to happen for all the humanity, I would say. But it's special. So this is an incredible tough place to come. So with Arne it's difficult, with Jurgen was difficult. So the quality of they have, the history this stadium has. Of course, this is nice. So we won once. It's the second time we won here.
While Liverpool manager Arne Slot was left disappointed with that result.
Another great Liverpool-Man City game, as we've seen so many times over the last few years. And this was again one of them, but for us, of course, a very disappointing outcome with a 2-1 loss. We're more comfortable in the ball than us. So they had the better than us, but that didn't lead to many big chances apart from in the first minute. I think Haaland was close to a goal. But I think in the second half it was completely the opposite, where we was waiting for a goal, and when we got it, I was waiting for the second.
On to rugby news now, the Springbok 7 side took sweet revenge on Fiji in Perth on Sunday, beating the HSBC 7's log leaders 21-19 in a pulsating final at the HBF Park Stadium. This to claim their first title on Australian soil since 2017 when they won in Sydney. Now the Blitzboks were 14-12 up at the halftime break, but then conceded the lead to Fiji early in the second half, with the last weekend's Singapore champions leading by 5 points with 4 minutes to play. Now the Blitzboks, then a second title of the season, leaves them just 4 points behind series leaders Fiji, heading into the North America leg in the next coming weeks. So as the team now prepares for the Vancouver leg on the 7th as well as the 8th of March, South Africa will face the likes of the All Blacks 7s, Spain as well as Great Britain at the BC Place Stadium for a spot in the semi-finals in Canada. On that winning note, it concludes your Sports News this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, do send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with the final sports update on Africa Rise and Shine in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Mosibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Okay, coming up shortly, we're going to be taking a look at the business news. But we've been talking about minerals quite a bit because of the African mining indaba, and that always gets me looking to see exactly what is the story. And what we know is that Africa holds roughly 30% of the world's known mineral reserves, including major deposits of gold, platinum, cobalt, chromium, and diamonds. Now, many of the minerals used in modern batteries and electronics come from African soil, hence the term critical minerals. And this resource wealth places the continent at the center of future energy and technology supply chains. And we need to be part of that. And that's the whole thing, is that industries are being built around our minerals, but we're not benefiting as much as we should in the process. Coming up, the business news.
Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
Okay, let's catch you up then with the business news and with all of the information that you need. It's Chanduko Ligege. Good morning.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. The Namibian presidency says the country will not recognize the purchase of offshore stakes in the Lüderitz Basin announced last week by Total Energies until the oil companies follow the proper route for approval. Spokesperson for the presidency, Jonas Mbambo, has confirmed that until a formal application is submitted and the prescribed statutory process is completed, no transaction can be recognized or considered valid. On Friday, French major Total Energies and Brazil's Petrobras both announced acquiring a 42.5% stake in the PEL 104 exploration license offshore Namibia, as both firms look to develop oil in one of the world's last exploration frontiers. Angola is pursuing a 20% to 30% stake in Anglo-American's diamond unit, DBS. A proposal is being discussed with the other diamond-producing African nations. DBS, which is one of the world's leading diamond companies with operations spanning Botswana, Namibia, Angola, South Africa, and Canada, has been put up for sale by Anglo amid falling diamond prices and the global rise of synthetic diamonds. Angola submitted a bid for a majority stake in DBS in October 2025, though it had initially sought a minority stake. Angola's National Director of Mineral Resources, Paulo Tangana, who is currently attending the African Mining Conference in Cape Town, South Africa, says taking the majority stake within luxury commodities is very risky looking at the size of the country's economy. In other news, Agri Western Cape, South Africa, says staying ahead of the spread of the foot and mouth disease is imperative to the province's agricultural sector. Premier Alan Winde, Provincial Minister of Agriculture Dr. Evan Meyer, and other stakeholders hosted a media briefing to provide an update on the response to foot and mouth disease in the province. Agri Western Cape CEO Yanis Strydom says a permit system is under consideration.
In our view, our opinion, the major thing that needs to be implemented now, the first thing is movement control. We've discussed a permit system as well, and we support it, and we will gladly assist the department in managing the rollout of such a system. I think the whole industry is of so much value to the province that we need to contain the virus and then also eliminate the spreading thereof. So, we welcome the announcement of 100 million rand that's been set aside for vaccine, but we leave that to the provincial leaders to take it up with national government on how to procure and to distribute those vaccines.
Airports Company South Africa AXA CEO Mpumi Mpofu has denied that the entity had a planned deal to have a private terminal at R Tambo International Airport for alleged criminal cartel kingpin Vusmuzi Kat Matlala's company. This after reports that Matlala had been engaging with a private bank to fund a $4.3 million private terminal at the airport. Mpofu briefed the media on AXA's performance during the festive season and future infrastructure development plans. Mpofu also indicated that she has never met or spoken to Matlala.
On our records, we can't find the Cat Matlala associated product. We just can't find it. So the number of possibilities with it is that it was discussed maybe with a former employee that left and we're not able to trace it. It's not on our records. But it also became, at least there were indications that it wasn't as if it was his company, it was with another company that might be with us, and they were moving in that direction. We really don't know.
Indian refiners are avoiding Russian oil purchases for delivery in April and are expected to stay away from such trades for longer, which is a move that could help New Delhi seal a trade pact with Washington. The US and India moved closer to a trade pact on Friday, announcing a framework for a deal they hope to conclude by March that would lower tariffs and deepen economic cooperation. 3 Indian refiners are not accepting offers from traders for Russian oil loading in March and April. Now let's shift our focus to financial indicators this hour. $1 in Nigeria is 1,000 Naira 366, Botswana 13 Pula 10, Kenya the dollar is 128 shilling 45, Zambia 18 Kwacha 63, BRICS countries $1 in Brazil 5 real 21, Russia 76 rubles 94, India 90 rupee 43, China 61 93, South Africa 16 rand 2 cents. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound, 84 to the euro. Commodities: gold is at $5,017, platinum at $2,087 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $67.41 a barrel. That is all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chandruko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
It's a little shy of 7:45 Central African Time, so it's been a countdown to SABC2's shows that spark conversation, and today is it. The new era of SABC2 is officially here. Stories, voices, and moments South Africans can experience together. One of those shows is Ain't Lit, Let's Connect, which includes big personalities, honest talk, and the kind of stories people will be discussing everywhere. Live in every beat, tonight's an SABC2 night.
Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa. Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
The South African National Defence Force has begun preparations for Armed Forces Day 2026, scheduled for 21st February. The national event will be held in Thohoyandou, Limpopo province, to honour serving members of the Defence Force and remember fallen soldiers, including those lost in the 1917 sinking of the SS Mendi. The plans were outlined during a media briefing in Thulamela municipality. Here's Channel Africa's Lebogang Mabange with more.
The The South African National Defence Force says Armed Forces Day remains a key fixture on its annual calendar aimed at strengthening its connection with communities across the country. Addressing members of the media at the Thulamela Local Municipality Library, SANDF Chief General Rutsani Mapwanya explained why the Defence Force chose to host the 2026 commemoration in Thohoyandou rather than a provincial capital.
Since the inception of this important event called the Armed Forces Day in the calendar of the National Defence Force in 2013, we have traversed almost all the provinces of our country. Today, as we come to Thohoyandou, it is our second bite in the province of Limpopo. We were in Polokwane, but now that we are going on the second round because we have gone through all the provinces, we took a decision that let us pause and see, why must we be in the capital of Limpopo province when we have to be with the people and where our people are?
Local government has welcomed the decision, saying the area is ready to host a national event of this scale. Thulamela Local Municipality Mayor Sarah Rambuta says the commemoration also serves as a reminder of the role played by armed forces personnel in protecting the country.
Thulamela is ready to host 2026 National Armed Forces Day. On Armed Forces Day, we proudly salute the courageous men and women who serve in a nation's military, including active duty, reserve, and veteran personnel. It encourages citizens to reflect on the importance of national defense and the need for ongoing support of Armed Forces Day.
General Mapwanya stressed that the decision to host Armed Forces Day in the Bembe district is intentional and forms part of the Defence Force's broader mandate to remain visible and accessible to the communities it serves.
It is not just fashionable that we go and parade, and it's not by default that we are currently commemorating the Armed Forces Day here in Bembe District Municipality, in Thulamela Local Municipality, but it's part and parcel of that important part of ongoing effort to expose both our defense force and our willingness to defend our people.
He added that beyond the ceremonial aspect, Armed Forces Day also serves as a practical demonstration of the SANDF's readiness to respond to emergencies anywhere in the country.
The Armed Forces Day is not only showcasing our hardware, but it is also telling our people that we are able to deploy at the shortest possible time to any part of the country when and if required. So this is like a rehearsal. Should we be required to deploy in Limpopo, we will be able to, in the shortest possible time, be here.
The 2026 Armed Forces Day will be commemorated on the 21st of February in Thohoyandou, Limpopo, marking both a celebration of those currently in uniform and a moment of remembrance for soldiers who lost their lives in service of the country. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Okay, 7:50 is your time, and coming up in a short while, we're going to be trying to figure out how it is. In some parts of the world, the prices of food are going down, and that's a shock to me because some of us, it's not happening. That's not what we're experiencing. So maybe our retailers have something to tell us, but that's all coming up in a short while. Asanda will be taking a look at that.
The Morning Switch Weekend with the Shy Guy.
I Show Speed, often called Speed, who is a popular American YouTuber and live streamer known for his high-energy personality, loud reactions, and unpredictable humor. He visited Ethiopia, and he was shocked what he found out, actually, when he got to Ethiopia. He got to find out that, they don't use the Gregorian calendar. That is, we are in 2026 right now. And he got to find out they are in 2018.
2018. Are you trolling me?
It's 2026. No. It ain't 2026. Wait, hold on. Wait, we in the past? Ronaldo is still in Real Madrid. Everything is in the past here.
Oh man, how shocked the speed was.
He went back in time. Saturday and Sunday mornings belong to the morning switch. 3 to 6 a.m. Central African Time. Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Global food prices have fallen for the fifth month in a row, driven by record harvests and rising stockpiles. This easing is helping to stabilize international markets, but many African countries continue to struggle with high food costs, partly due to import dependencies and local supply challenges. Rising rice and vegetable oil prices also highlight that not all staples are becoming cheaper. Joining us now to explain these trends is Monica Totova, her leader of the Food and Agricultural Organization's Price Index team in Rome. Monica, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Morning to you.
So, global food prices have been falling for months according to certain trends. What is behind this, first of all, and should African consumers be feeling any relief?
Let me first put things a little bit into context. What we are talking here are food commodity prices, right? We are talking about wheat, rice, maize, butter, vegetable oil you mentioned in your introductions. So those are all commodity prices at the bulk level. These are the commodities that the import-dependent countries, for example, would be importing. If, as a country, you are not growing enough wheat, but your consumers like to eat bread, they like to eat bagels, pasta, etc., you have to import wheat. So the price of this wheat has been declining because there is plenty of wheat in the world, right? We had very good harvests in all major producing areas. There were no major shock that would impact the markets. So on this commodity level, we are talking about declines in prices. So what is behind, and as you rightly mentioned, the dairy prices decline, dairy overall, which is a certain formula behind butter, cheese, and milk powders. Dairy, meat, and sugar have declined, while the cereal prices and vegetable oil prices, they pushed up. But again, we are talking about the commodities. It is not what the consumer buys. The consumer is buying something that was further processed, that went through the supply chain. There is also the cost of labor that contributed to this transformation. There is the cost of energy and other costs as well. So, but the good news is we are certainly, globally speaking, when it comes to the prices of food commodities, we are in a better shape than we were, for example, a year ago.
So even with prices easing globally, food costs remain high in many African countries, as we previously mentioned, that not all staples are becoming cheaper. So why is that?
So one reason behind this is that the staples that the consumers are buying, not only in Africa but across the world, they might not necessarily be traded, right? A good example, for example, is the case of white maize as opposed to yellow maize. White maize, which is consumed a lot in South Africa, it is a product that is not really broadly traded, right? You have some production in Mexico, some production in Southern Africa, but it is not that if you have a shortage of white maize, you will go out to the global market and you will purchase it, and you will then supplement what you are producing domestically. So many other products, if you are producing, for example, your consumers enjoy certain types of cheeses, they enjoy certain cuts of meat, those could be defined, the prices are defined more on the local level. Similarly, for the FAO, we don't look at the price of perishables, right? So there will be no price of eggs, there will be no price of fruits and vegetables, etc., etc. So global commodities, local food costs, that is what your consumers are paying, is a little bit more defined and a little bit more complicated.
So what are the biggest risks that could reverse gains for Africa? Because as the Food Agricultural Organization, there's been a warning that current market stability may not be permanent.
Well, the market stability is never permanent, right? That's basically what is the defining source of the market. You can have a shock from anywhere that can erode these gains. So what we are looking at, what we are keeping in the back of our minds when we are analyzing the food commodity markets is there going to be some sort of a shock? Now, shocks can come in many shapes and forms. One of them, for example, the most frequent one, is a weather-related shock. For now, which would then impact the amount of staples that is being produced. The good news here is that the staples themselves, such as wheat and maize, are produced across the whole world or in many parts of the world. So if you have a drought, for example, that affects one part of the world, there is a good chance that the other part of the world is still going to produce. But what we are keeping an eye on are weather-related shocks, are developments in different types of policies, for example. They could be transportation bottlenecks, which the last year and a half have been holding up, but I'm sure the listeners might recall the shipping challenges in the Red Sea, or the drought-induced reduction in the Panama Canal, which prevented many ships from passing the two main arteries. So those are the main shocks that we would consider at this point.
Looking ahead, what should African governments do to take advantage then of these current global supply situation, especially to protect food security?
Well, a natural thing would be that if you can afford it, you take advantage of the lower prices, right? Now, having said that, there is also, as it was already mentioned, the question of the exchange rate. So if your currency, because the prices on the global markets are denominated in US dollars usually. So if, depending on how your currency is vis-a-vis with the United States dollar, there might be some possibility to import and store it. However, to do this, I am not here advocating for stockpiling on the national level, but to do this, you also need to have the capacity to store it, right? To store it so the product does not go bad and you can use it again in the future.
Right. Monica, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much. It's always great having these very important conversations with you around food security.
Thank you.
That's Monica Totova, leader of the Food and Agricultural Organization's Price Index team in Rome, helping us understand the latest trends in global food prices and what they mean for Africa. We now enter the third and final hour of Rise and Shines with me, Asanda, Beda and Peter Ndoro. Good morning if you've just joined us. 8 o'clock Central African time it is. Here's your news with Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Jihadist groups are increasingly carrying out drone strikes in West Africa, raising alarm that they are building the capacity to wage war from the skies. A leading violence monitoring organization, ACLED, has recorded at least 69 drone strikes by an Al-Qaeda affiliate in Burkina Faso and Mali since 2023, while two Islamic State affiliates have carried out around 20, mostly in Nigeria, which has been battling numerous insurgent groups for almost 25 years. Elizabeth Mapari reports.
The latest drone attack took place in Nigeria's northeastern Borno state on the 29th of January when jihadists carried out a two-pronged assault with multiple armed drones and ground fighters on a military base. According to SAWAT, ISWAP has carried out 10 drone strikes since 2024 in northeastern Nigeria as well as in northern Cameroon, southern Niger and southern Chad, all countries affected by the insurgency in Nigeria. The jihadist group that has used drones the most is the Al-Qaeda-affiliated JNIM, which claims to have carried out 69 strikes in neighboring Mali and Burkina Faso and one across the border in Togo.
Ethiopia's Foreign Minister Gideon Timotheos has accused neighboring Eritrea of military aggression and of supporting armed groups inside Ethiopian territory. The two long-standing enemies who waged war against each other between 1998 and 2000 signed a peace deal in 2018 and were allies during Ethiopia's two-year war against regional authorities in the northern Tigray region. Recent clashes between Tigrayan forces and the Ethiopian troops have raised fears of a return to war. The February 7 letter from Timotheos to his Eritrean counterpart, Usman Saleh, said Eritrean forces had occupied Ethiopian territory along parts of their shared border for an extended period and had provided material support to militant groups operating inside Ethiopia. The United Nations peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo has expressed its deep gratitude to the government and people of South Africa for their steadfast commitment to UN peacekeeping over several decades. MONUSCO has also indicated that it had informed the UN Secretariat of President Cyril Ramaphosa's decision to withdraw the country's remaining SANDF contingents and troops. Sharon Bryce Peace reports.
MONUSCO also thanked South African peacekeepers for the dedication demonstrated in support of its peacekeeping mandate in eastern Congo. The mission statement also paid tribute to those peacekeepers who lost their lives under the UN flag in the service of peace in the DRC and honored their service. MONUSCO said it looked forward to continuing to engage South Africa on broader peacekeeping issues, including lessons learned and continued support to efforts aimed at advancing peace and stability. It also promised to manage the transition in a safe, orderly and responsible manner in line with UN operational requirements.
As South Africans ready themselves for the State of the Nation address this week, border crime remains a concern for communities at the borderline between South Africa and Zimbabwe. Some say the SONA must address the security situation at the border. Residents and business people in Niani along the Limpopo River say criminals from neighboring countries operate with impunity, stealing their vehicles and livestock. Kiran Medukonduri from Mulale, outside Messina, is one of the crime victims in the area. He explains how one of his vehicles got hijacked and was taken to Zimbabwe in 2024.
I got out of my bakkie and I tried to open the gate. So the moment I turned back, I saw a guy pointing a gun at me, standing next to the bakkie. He was asking me for the keys. And then he started driving. There is another two guys again with firearms. So they took all my belongings, my laptop, my phone, everything. They dropped me there in the bush. They took out even my shoes, everything, so that I can't even walk. And then I started walking towards the village looking for the roads. In the meantime, I find all the villagers, about 10-20 bakkies. They are full of people. The whole village started looking for me the moment they came to know from my guys that I've been taken with the bakkie.
Lastly, Russia's security service has extradited a man from the United Arab Emirates from accusing him of trying to assassinate a senior general on Friday. He'd been detained in Dubai. Russia's Federal Security Service named him as Lyubomir Koba, a Russian citizen who's said to have been born in Ukraine. The BBC's Danny Eberhardt.
FSB video footage shows a blindfolded, handcuffed man being taken off a plane by masked agents. Russia accuses Lyubomir Koba of shooting Vladimir Alexeyev 3 times with a pistol fitted with a silencer in the general's apartment block. The Kremlin says President Putin spoke last night to his counterpart in the UAE to thank the Emiratis for their assistance. The FSB has also named 2 other alleged accomplices, both of them Russians, a man who was detained in Moscow and a Ukrainian-born woman who it said had escaped to Ukraine.
Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, South Africa will open their T20 World Cup campaign today, while South Africa were crowned HSBC Perth champions over the weekend. Details of these and other stories coming up at 8:30.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine, every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
Good morning and welcome to Rise and Shine. If you've just joined us, we now enter the third hour as we broadcast live from our Johannesburg studios in South Africa. Connect with us on the DSTV audio bouquet, channel number 802. You can find us on channelafrica.co.za. That's another way. Another way to connect is the SABC Plus app via mobile phones. My name is Asanda Beda.
And I'm Peter Ndoro. Thanks so much indeed for joining us for this third and final hour of the program. Is it third hour already?
Yep.
It's gone quickly today, hey?
Yeah.
That means we're having fun.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to be looking at a pretty serious issue, sadly. AI has its positives, but it also has its negative side. And something that's coming up a lot now is something we call deep fakes. And these are being used and sadly abusing children, creating imaging around them of a sexual nature. So we'll be talking to the United Nations that's very concerned with the proliferation of AI and its abuses.
On that very same topic, the United Nations has unveiled a new step in global AI governance, and has been a submission of 40 international experts to the General Assembly for a proposed independent international scientific panel. The aim of this is to assess how rapidly advancing artificial intelligence, or AI, is reshaping economies. We need some kind of guidelines on this. I think that's a good step in the right direction.
I don't know if you can police this sort of thing.
It will be very difficult, but let's try.
Yeah.
So those stories and more coming up on this hour of Rise and Shine.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and the whole country affected by gender-based violence. For all your favorite SABC radio stations, call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
The United Nations has unveiled a new step in global AI governance, with Secretary General Antonio Guterres submitting a list of 40 international experts to the General Assembly for a proposed independent international scientific panel on artificial intelligence. The body, the first fully independent global scientific panel focusing on AI, aims to assess how rapidly advancing artificial intelligence is reshaping economies, societies, and human development. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe has more.
The move comes amid growing global concern about the rapid expansion of artificial intelligence and its far-reaching social, economic, and political implications. The United Nations has warned that while AI offers major opportunities for innovation, productivity, and improved public services. It also raises serious risks including misinformation, job disruption, privacy violations, biased decision-making, and widening inequality between countries. Addressing the media, UN General Secretary said he has submitted a list of 40 independent experts to the General Assembly for consideration.
Today we are taking an important step to help ensure artificial intelligence serves all of humanity. I have just submitted for the consideration of the General Assembly a list of 40 distinguished individuals from every region to serve on the new independent international scientific panel on artificial intelligence. The panel is a direct response to the mandate given by member states in the Pact for the Future to strengthen multilateral solutions for emerging technologies that are reshaping every aspect of our lives. It will be the first global, fully independent scientific body dedicated to helping close the AI knowledge gap and assess the real impacts of AI across economies and societies.
Guterres said the initiative comes at a crucial moment as artificial intelligence is advancing rapidly and increasingly shaping societies, economies, and daily life worldwide, adding that more than 2,600 applications were submitted from experts representing a wide range of disciplines.
And this could not be more urgent. AI is moving at the speed of light, and no country can see the full picture alone. We need shared understandings to build effective guardrails, unlock innovation for the common good, and foster cooperation. The panel will help the world separate fact from fakes and science from slop. It will provide an authoritative reference point at a moment when reliable, unbiased understanding of AI has never been more critical. Following an open global call that drew more than 2,600 applications, I have proposed to the General Assembly a list of individuals with deep expertise across disciplines, including machine learning, data governance, public health, cybersecurity, childhood development, and human rights.
Guterres emphasized that all nominees to the new AI panel will serve independently in their personal capacities, free from government or corporate influence, with an initial report expected to be delivered ahead of July's global AI governance discussions, underscoring the urgent need for science-based cooperation as artificial intelligence rapidly reshapes the world.
All members will serve in their personal capacity, independent of any government, company, or institution. The panel will work on a fast track. Its first report will be expected in time to inform the global dialogue on AI governance in July. AI is transforming our world. The question is whether we will shape this transformation together or allow it to shape us. At a time of deep geopolitical tension and growing technological rivalry, we urgently need common ground and a practical basis for cooperation based on science and solidarity. That is what this panel can help deliver.
UN Special Envoy on Technology Amandeep Gill said the 40 nominees for the proposed International AI Scientific Panel were selected through a 6-week global nomination process, noting how candidates were evaluated against strict UN criteria, with emphasis on recognized AI expertise, interdisciplinary knowledge, and broad geographic representation.
The nomination is a 6-week-long window that was opened up in September and October for nominations of candidates. We received around 2,700 candidates, geographically diverse, covering several areas of expertise. And then these candidates were assessed on very strict criteria, which were described in the resolution that you, sir, had mentioned. So we shortlisted the candidates based on their outstanding expertise in artificial intelligence, and then also looked at the adjacent areas of applications where the impact is being felt. So an interdisciplinary perspective was adopted in terms of these assessments.
Gill said the proposed AI scientific panel reflects strong gender balance, with 19 women and 21 men among the nominees with global recognition, including a Nobel laureate, a Turing Award winner, and leading figures in computer science.
In terms of the gender balance, I just want to highlight, this is a panel with 19 women and 21 men, so balanced, and also with outstanding expertise. You have someone who's the most quoted computer scientist in the world. You a Nobel Prize winner, a Turing Award winner, and several other outstanding individuals whose expertise is globally recognized.
The General Assembly is expected to make the final decision on membership on 12 February 2026. Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
So artificial intelligence is moving fast, and as we've just heard, the United Nations is stepping up efforts to guide how it can be governed globally. But alongside the opportunities, there are some very serious dangers, especially for children. UNICEF is warning about a sharp rise in AI-generated sexualized images of minors, often created using ordinary photos taken from social media. The agency says that so-called deep fakes abuse is as real abuse, the real psychological harm that comes with it. Well, to help us understand the scale of this threat and what can be done to protect children, we're now joined by Makiba Yamano, who's the Chief of Child Protection at UNICEF South Africa. Makiba, thanks very much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Peter, for inviting us.
So we've just heard about new global efforts at the United Nations to put guardrails around artificial intelligence. And I wonder, from a child protection perspective, how urgent is the risk that you're seeing from AI-generated sexualized images of children?
United Nations Children's Fund is increasingly alarmed by the reports of the rapid rise in the volume of AI-generated sexualized images that are circulating. It's extremely serious now. Based on our own study across 11 countries, an estimated 1.2 million children said their images were turned into sexual deepfakes in just 1 year. We also know that AI-generated sexual abuse materials often disproportionately targeting girls. In some countries, that's one child in every classroom, translated into one in every 25 children. This is not about future risk. This is actually happening now, currently at scale. Children themselves responded to us saying they are worried. In some countries, up to 2/3 of the children say they fear AI could be used to create fake sexual images of their own.
So tell us a little bit more about how these deep fakes are created and why is the harm real even when the images are fake?
Sure. So the AI-generated sexual abuse involves using artificial intelligence to create or manipulate sexualized images or videos of children. This could include deep fakes or so-called nudification tools that has been on the news as well. Even if the image itself is fake, the harm is real to children. It can violate children's dignity, cause shame and then fear, and then can follow them for years because internet never forgets. And we must be very clear. Sexualized image of children generated or manipulated using AI tool is real child sexual abuse material. That's why we need to stand strong to say deepfake abuse is real abuse for children. It can normalize the sexualization of the children, fuel the demand for such images, and it makes it even harder to identify and protect the real victims who are children who can be horrored by these sexual images.
How big is the problem at the moment? Do you have any estimates of how many children have been abused in this way already?
Yes. So when we studied across 11 countries, there is an estimated 1.2 million children across these countries who have been already affected. As I said, in some countries, it can be 1 in every 25 children in their country. And that's not a small number. And then as earlier, the United Nations Secretary General was saying that AI is growing in a light speed, and we really need to take action to catch up with it. Otherwise, they wouldn't control.
Do we have any signs in Africa that our children are also being caught up in this and are being affected by this kind of abuse?
Yes, definitely. So among 11 countries we have studies, some include African countries as well. United Nations Children's Fund has been following up on the online child safety issues closely and then producing the report called Disrupting Harm Report. And then it includes some African countries that has been studied as well.
I think earlier you might have given us a clue to my next question. If a child discovers that their face has been used in this kind of content, what kind of typical emotions and psychological impacts are you seeing?
Yes. Even if people say, oh, it is only a fake image, it's not the real children who is affected, many children whose material was used then need to face the full weight of consequences. It can include the feeling of shame, stigma, or moral judgment by the peers or even the adults surrounding them, social isolation, including long-term emotional harm from the fear that images might never disappear from the internet. Some are blackmailed or threatened using these images that are not real, and then they are fake. But it can actually harm their real feelings and then their real social relationships. The harm can affect their school friendships, mental health long after the image has been circulated. So what's also especially damaging is perhaps it's not caused by their own mistakes. The children who are affected can be violated without ever sending a photo to somebody or even knowing what has happened behind the scene.
Are children and teenagers becoming more and more aware of this kind of abuse? And if that's the case, are they starting to become concerned about being online?
I think it's the double-edged sword because children also find many opportunities through online, especially for the children living in the disadvantaged area like rural area, that they are accessing opportunities that they never had before. Of course, children themselves are aware, but at the same time, we should not leave this responsibility to children or parents alone. So United Nations Children's Fund is also calling for governments and then also tech companies who are providing these platforms to take urgent action to regulate these deep fake images that are causing harms for children.
Can it be regulated? I wonder, is it the platform providers that need to be dealt with, because they're certainly allowing those tools, and that AI should be able to be programmed not to be able to assist?
Definitely. So we see that the gaps are on both sides. As we were saying that AI is growing at the light speed. So many of the existing laws or regulations that were created for the internet regulation was before the AI. So it doesn't really clearly cover the AI generated abuse. At the same time, AI tools and platforms are often released without adequate child safety safeguards. So now the children are the ones who are paying the price for these systems that were designed for their dignity and their rights in mind. So what we call for is that the government must update laws so that AI-generated sexual images of children can be clearly defined as illegal. And tech companies must also design products with safety built in from the beginning and stop this content from being created or shared. Of course, we all as parents All the social service providers and educators need to support to talk to children and respond safely and provide help without blaming children who has been caught in this rapid, fast-paced development and then their own safety.
For maybe parents, teachers, and caregivers that might be listening and watching this interview this morning, what practical steps can they take immediately to help reduce this risk to our children?
I think first is that parents, caregivers, and schools need to be aware that this AI-generated sexual abuse of children is real. It's not coming in future. It's already happening at scale right now, including some African countries. So it needs to be definitely information sharing with parents and caregivers, and then also in schools. And then parents and caregivers can also share these risks about AI-generated images with their own children at home as well. Make it as a habit, as you give a gadget to children for the gift or the reward to the good exam result, then make it the habit to also talk about the opportunities and then the risks the children need to be aware of. And then I think catching and then monitoring their online activities every now and then, so that you are able to notice that if there is something wrong happening in their online life as well as their physical life as well. But as I said earlier, we should not leave parents, caregivers, and children to deal with this issue alone. So we really need to also have everyone's hands together, particularly the government to regulate, but also tech companies to make sure there is a safety by design.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough question, but is there hope that we can win this, that we can find ways to protect our children?
I think we should. I think it's not about our willingness. It's not about if we have the ability or time. I think we should, because otherwise our children who are still young and they may not know how to protect themselves can be trapped in this danger. And then we as adults, and then those who are providing these platforms, and then the government who is in a position to regulate, we need to urgently put our acts together. Otherwise, while we are also enjoying the benefit of AI, there is growing risks and then harms we need to protect our children from.
Makiba, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very, very much indeed for illuminating and enlightening us on this. And I think some of us didn't even know it was going on, and so we probably weren't looking out for these signs and the clues. But thank you so much indeed for giving us time to have this important conversation.
Thank you so much, Peter, for inviting me once again.
So that's Makiba Yamano, who's Chief of Child Protection at UNICEF South Africa, speaking to us to explain the scale of this problem that we're seeing now. Children being used in deep fakes. And she says in some of the research that she's done, more than 1 million children have seen their images, usually innocent pictures from social media, being taken by people and using AI to sexualize these poor children. And clearly listening to that conversation, and I suppose just you would know the consequences for the children, psychologically, emotionally, and physically sometimes enormous. So something for us all to pay attention to, that every innocent picture may be abused. It's 8:30. It's time for us to get your news headlines with Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Jihadist groups are increasingly carrying out drone strikes in West Africa, raising alarm that they are building the capacity to wage a war from the skies. Ethiopia's foreign minister has accused neighboring Eritrea of military aggression and of supporting armed groups who are inside Ethiopian territory. And the Hong Kong media tycoon and pro-democracy campaigner Jimmy Lai has been sentenced to 20 years in prison. This is the harshest punishment yet handed out under Territory Strict national security law. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
It's time now for our sports news, and we say good morning to Musibudi Makura for that update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Asanda. Very good morning once again from the sports desk. So South Africa's T20 captain Aiden Markram says the team have studied Canada ahead of their opening ICC T20 World Cup match this afternoon. So while Canada is not regarded as one of cricket's traditional powerhouses and remains relatively unknown compared to South Africa's most established rivals, Markram explains that the Proteas have the research necessary to understand their opponents. He also admits that they knew little about the side coming into the tournament, but stresses that preparation has given them a clearer picture of what to expect from their opponents.
Did a bit of homework yesterday, so got a decent idea now. Obviously, coming to the World Cup, didn't know too much, but important to do that homework and research on their players, strengths, weaknesses, all those sorts of things, and definitely got a much better understanding now.
Now, while Markram also knows that this is a mismatch on paper and they will be expected to win with a comfortable margin, he remains humble about their chances. He says it's important to respect opponents regardless of who they are.
Yeah, you don't want to jinx anything. At the start of this comp already, we've seen some close games, and it doesn't look like there's going to be any straightforward, easy games, but I have faith in our team that if we put a really good game of cricket together, then we give ourselves a good chance at a good result, and that's sort of something you want to do in a competition like this. You want to start off really well and run with that moving forward. So that's where a lot of the focus has been for us as a group, and hopefully we can put a really good game of cricket together.
All right, so kickoff for that game is at 3:30 p.m. Central African time. It's the first match that South Africa will be playing at this year's ICC Cricket World Cup, co-hosted by Sri Lanka as well as India. Meanwhile, England survived a scare in their T20 World Cup opener, edging Nepal by 4 runs in a thrilling Group C clash at Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. Harry Brook as well as Jacob Bethel struck half centuries before Will Jacks blasted 39 on out, including 3 sixes in the final over to lift England to 187 for the loss of 7 wickets. Nepal fought bravely, needing 10 runs from the last over, but Sam Curran then held his nerve as they finished on 180 for the loss of 6 wickets. It was the team's first ever meeting, and with England's 2-time champions avoiding an upset to begin their campaign on a winning note. Well, South Africa's Springbok Sevens squad took sweet revenge on Fiji in Perth on Sunday, beating the HSBC Sevens log leaders 21-19 in a pulsating final at the HBF Park to claim their first title on Australian soil since 2017 when they won in Sydney. The Blitzboks were up 14-12 at the halftime break, but then conceded the lead to Fiji early in the second half, with that last week's Singapore champions leading by 5 points with 4 minutes to play. The Blitzboks' second title of the season leaves them just 4 points behind the series leaders Fiji heading into the final North America leg. As the team prepares for Vancouver, that competition is taking place between the 7th as well as the 8th of March. South Africa will face the likes of the All Black Sevens, Spain as well as Great Britain at the BC Place Stadium for a place in the semi-finals in Canada. And finally, in some golf news, Patrick Reed won his second DP World Tour title in 3 tournaments with a victory at the Qatar Masters. Now, the American beat Scotland's Callum Hill by 2 strokes with a score of 16 overall, having led from the first round in Doha. The 35-year-old who recently left to make a return to the PGA Tour won Dubai Desert Classic 2 weeks ago and finished tied second after a three-way playoff, also involving Hill at last week's Bahrain Championship. Reed, the 2018 Masters champion, started the final round 2 shots ahead of Jacob Skov Olsen. The Dane shot 1 under 71 and ended in a tie for third with American Johannes Veerman. On that note, it concludes your sports news this morning on Africa Rise and Shine. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, remember to send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us. The newsroom line is +27 11714 4459. It is 8:36 a.m. Central African Time. I'm back with more sports news with the On The Move team in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Coming up on Rise and Shine, we go to Kenya, where the President, William Ruto, has announced new tax relief measures. So I guess that would mean those Gen Z protests in the country have yielded some positive move. That's on Rise and Shine.
Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter? Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard? Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 9126. And we will call you back so you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age. I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So that's who I am,
It's not just talk. It's your chance to air your views. Share your opinion. Engage with the community that values your perspective. Follow us on our social media. Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za and get ready to share your views on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Let's get an African perspective on what's been happening in the world of business. Let's say good morning again to Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Thank you, Peter, and good morning. This year's Africa Mining Indaba promises to be bigger as leaders from African countries have assembled with a mission of ensuring that the mining industry delivers economic benefits for the continent. The gathering, which is scheduled to start today until Thursday in Cape Town, has brought together governments, mining executives, financiers and investors from across the globe, and the discussions come at a critical moment for the continent as Africa positions itself as a key supplier of minerals needed for the global energy transition. Our economics reporter Innocent Simusa gives us a preview of the gathering.
Leaders from across Africa and beyond will be grappling with how to, or better position the continent and how the continent can attract sustainable investment while really ensuring mining delivers real economic benefits locally. But some of the key talking points that I think will be dominating discussions in this year's Mining Indaba is investment, the issues around climate and policy certainty.
The Namibian presidency says the country will not recognize the purchase of offshore stakes in the Lüderitz Basin announced last week by Total Energies until oil companies follow the proper route for approval. Spokesperson for the presidency, Jonas Mbambo, has confirmed that until a formal application is submitted and the prescribed statutory process is completed, no transaction can be recognized or considered valid. On Friday, French major Total Energies and Brazil's Petrobras both announced acquiring a 42.5% stake in the PEL 104 exploration license offshore Namibia, as both firms look to develop oil in one of the world's last exploration frontiers. Angola is pursuing a 20% to 30% stake in Anglo-American's diamond unit De Beers. A proposal is being discussed with other diamond-producing African nations. De Beers, which is one of the world's leading diamond companies with operations spanning Botswana, Namibia, Angola, South Africa and Canada, has been put up for sale by Anglo amid falling diamond prices and the global rise of synthetic diamonds. Angola submitted a bid for a majority stake in De Beers in October 2025, though it had initially sought a minority stake. Agri-Western Cape in South Africa says staying ahead of the spread of the foot and mouth disease is imperative to the province's agricultural sector. Premier Alan Winde, Provincial Minister of Agriculture Dr. Evan Meyer, and other stakeholders hosted a media briefing to provide an update on the response to foot and mouth disease in the province. Agri-Western Cape CEO Yanis Strydom says a permit system is under consideration.
In our view, our opinion, the major thing that needs to be implemented now, the first thing is movement control. We've discussed a permit system as well, and we support it, and we will gladly assist the department in managing the rollout of such a system. I think the whole industry is of so much value to the province that we need to contain the virus and then also eliminate the spreading thereof. So, we welcome the announcement of 100 million rand that's been set aside for vaccine, but we leave that to the provincial leaders to take it up with national government on how to procure and to distribute those vaccines.
Indian refiners are avoiding Russian oil purchases for delivery in April and are expected to stay away from such trades for longer. Refining and trade sources have said that this move could help New Delhi seal a trade pact with Washington. The US and India moved closer to a trade pact on Friday, announcing a framework for a deal they hope to conclude by March that would lower tariffs and deepen economic cooperation. 3 Indian refiners are not accepting offers from traders for Russian oil loading in March and April. Let's have a look at financial indicators. $1 in Nigeria is 1,000 naira 366, Botswana 13 pula 10, Kenya 128 shilling 45, Zambia 18 kwacha 63. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 21, Russia 76 rubles 94, India 90 rupee 43, China 6 yuan 93, South Africa 16 rand 2 cents. $1 is 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Commodities, gold is at $5,028 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $2,094 per ounce. While the Brent crude oil is at $67.29 a barrel. That is all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Kenya's President William Ruto has announced new tax relief measures aimed at easing the cost of living for low and middle income earners. Under the new proposals, workers earning up to $231 a month will be exempt from income tax, while those earning up to $387 will see their tax rate reduced to 25%. President Ruto says the changes will see around 1.5 million Kenyans pay no income tax. Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Samusa has more.
President William Ruto says the proposed tax change aims to boost disposable income, support the middle class, and stimulate economic growth through increased spending and investment.
We are now saying that any Kenyan who earns less than 30,000 shillings will not pay any taxes. That is how progressively we are going to make sure that we manage the cost of living.
Do these tax relief measures genuinely ease the cost of living pressures for low and middle income Kenyans, or are they likely to be offset by rising prices and other indirect taxes? Economist A.B. Ajina weighs in.
By the government raising the
taxes, this eventually did see a lot of concern from the public, indicating that the country was already heavily taxed. And the measures that the government has introduced in terms of reducing the income tax, this has been well received across many pockets of Kenyans who have already been saddled with a high cost of living. So by reviewing these taxes, it will be having a profound effect, especially when it comes to increasing household spending and reducing the economic pressures that has continued to be a thorn in the flesh for many Kenyans. Well, looking at the current state of affairs, we do know that quite a number of Kenyans have been experiencing a slowdown.
According to Agina, the measure will ease the burden on many Kenyans as more than 2 million currently pay minimal or no income tax.
Well, this is not only going to ease the pressures on the backs of many Kenyans who have already been agitating for the government to cut down on value-added tax, income tax, and corporate income tax. These are some of the key issues that the government has been trying to address, even as the country prepares for an election in a year's time. Well, this is, of course, listening to some of the projections from the National Treasury. By reducing and avoiding to have this bracket of people paying taxes is not going to have a significant impact, considering right now that the government is looking towards diversifying its revenue-raising strategies.
He adds that this will significantly increase consumer spending.
According to the World Bank, Kenya's economy in 2025 and 2026 was to grow at about 4.9%, whereas the government had projected a growth of nearly 5%, which has been revised downwards. And looking at the latest PMI index, Kenya's January PMI index did show some good numbers at almost 51 points.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samosa in Johannesburg, South Africa.
So, this is launch day. SABC2's new era is officially here with a refreshed lineup built around local stories, shared moments, and real South African voices. And one of the shows I really like the sound of is Our Space, which is airing in the after school slot. It's a brand new interactive vodcast made for young people growing up in a digital world and talking about identity, confidence, friendships, tech, and mental wellness. Not adults lecturing, but young voices, experts, challenges, and real participation. Yeah, that's all. SABC2 speaking with the next generation, not over them. And that's a strong move. The new SABC2 is live, fresh shows, fresh energy, and something for the whole family to connect around.
Let's just do it. Your life just got easier. Get the Channel Africa app and take us wherever you go. Catch the latest news, enjoy your favorite shows, stream the music you love, and stay connected to the continent. All in one spot, right in your pocket. Simple, quick, and always with you. The Channel Africa app. Download it now on iOS and Android. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Also, weekdays from 9 or after the 9 o'clock news is On the Move here on Channel Africa after Rise and Shine. And to get us or tell us or update us what to expect on this Monday, the 9th of February's edition is Benjamin Mushatama. The show is hosted by Benjamin and Palesa. Good morning.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you? How was the weekend?
It was nice, man. It was very nice.
And there's such a positive statement the way he said it. Hey, I mean, you really believe him.
No, it was dope, man. Weekends are dope. I don't have to see you guys. All right, what's coming on the show today? I don't know if you guys were following. I'm sure you guys were following the commission because you guys reported on these things last week. And it was just the flippant way in which Brigadier Rachel Macheng was speaking about the relationship that she had with Kat Matlala, right? Because they had a business relationship and somehow she wanted to separate that from the boyfriend elements. Just a bit of a beautiful happening here, right? And for me, what was interesting was that the character herself was bold and the beautiful in one. And that's what we're talking about today. Is it a good thing to mix pleasure and business? It's an old age conversation. It's nothing really, really new.
Yes.
But we thought because this is coming to the forefront and it seems more casual than it's ever been in our society today, why not bring it back as a discussion?
It's interesting. I don't believe a word that she said, to be honest with you.
Yes.
So the boyfriend story is a convenient one because it explains the bribes.
And the transaction.
You see, so how else could she have got this money from or this presents from him?
Yes.
If it wasn't her boyfriend.
But we're speculating. I'm sure we're speculating.
So in the general sense, is it a good idea?
No.
It's not.
I don't think so, personally.
So nothing can happen between the two of you here?
Yeah, because I'm married as a
No.
starter.
I don't mean it deliberately. I'm just saying, Jay.
No, do you know what?
Because we work together.
Yeah, because you work together.
Well, no, I don't think there's a problem with people working together.
Because I'm thinking of the closeness of this relationship. You guys are here every morning together, doing this together.
If people can make a mental thing that we're at work now.
Okay.
And at work we behave like professionals. As soon as we leave work, we then are who we are. It's a difficult thing because if you fight, sometimes it can spill over to your workspace. So when everything is going well, it can be fantastic.
Yeah.
But the moment there's a disagreement or a fight,
and if you're a perfectionist as well, it can spill over in the family life. Times where you're supposed to have switched off from professional to personal. You find that you're not doing that either. Yeah, it's tricky. I think it can work, but it would need a lot of communication
and a lot of
check-ins.
And very adult people. Actually, I think you really have to be mature to, much like working from home, you have to say at 8 o'clock, I start working. I may be in my pajamas, but I'm actually working. Do you know what I mean? Whereas some people, the work mode only clicks when they're in a building, and at home, I'll start later.
Okay, that's what's coming up, guys. Thank you for the discussion.
That's fascinating. And you, what do you think?
I think I agree with both of you. I think it can easily be a problem and it can easily be wonderful if you can separate those two worlds. But I'm looking forward to the discussion between the two ladies who will join us on this one.
Okay. I'll be listening. I'm looking forward to that
so
as well.
That's on the move here on Channel Africa. Stay tuned for that.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Now, Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama wrapped up a 3-day state visit to Zambia on Friday, during which several key bilateral and development agreements were signed. The deals cover priority areas, including agriculture, food security, energy, mining, trade and investment, with benefits expected to extend beyond these two countries to the wider African continent. Our correspondent on the ground in Zambia is Arthur Davis Sikopo.
He arrived in Zambia with a mission and some immediate results, like waiving off visa fees for the two nations' peoples, and now being actualized as announced during a meeting of the two presidents, John Mahama and Hakainde Hichilema, the host. The visa waiver is also in line with achieving the African Union's Agenda 2063 of having free movement and trade among its member states, as Hichilema and Mahama speak.
Africa does the least trade with itself. It's criminal. It is taboo. It's unacceptable. You look at the size collectively of the African economy, but look at what we do with each other. Very, very little.
The agreements we signed today, especially the decision to allow visa-free travel
between our two countries are more than diplomatic instruments. They are statements of trust.
The visit has also seen 10 bilateral agreements being signed in various areas of cooperation, including health, security, transport, disaster risk management, air services, among others. The agreements see the two countries foster their desired relations, says President Mahama.
Our cooperation in health, education, air transport, defense, and other areas reflect our shared commitments to finding African solutions.
Zambia, that has a number of newly discovered gold sites dotted around, is eager to learn from Ghana on gold mining and other minerals, considering that Ghana's GDP is heavily supported by gold and oil.
And we're having challenges on managing the sector properly here. And Ghanaians have been at it for longer. And today we were able to share experiences.
Zambia and Ghana can be described as twins, as they both defaulted in debt repayment, forcing the two to initiate debt restructuring with their external creditors under an IMF program to restore confidence, a path they both took, and progress is being noted. It is by this that both the countries pledge to share ideas on how best they can trade with each other and other African countries to ensure they achieve sustainable and stable economic status. Hijilema speaks.
Debt issues, how they came out of the debt, how we did it ourselves, not completely out of it, restructuring our debts, very similar paths. And we now are saying we want to do more.
Mahama also shares his country's thoughts.
Ghana and Zambia seem to be twins of the same mother, going through the same economic and financial challenges.
The West African leader has also stepped into Zambia's parliament and was given a privilege to address the House as he urged the lawmakers across the continent to prioritize the people they represent above self.
Parliament and the judiciary must work independently in the public interest. Leaders must respect their oath of office to respect the Constitution. In our sub-region of West Africa, democracy is backsliding with a return to military dictatorships. Ghana is, however, on a mission to prove that democracy works.
The Ghanaian leader later visited Embassy Park, the presidential burial site, and paid tribute to late 5 presidents of the Republic of Zambia who are buried there, winding up his tour of duty in the southern African country as he met the business community at a business forum. President John Mahama urged African entrepreneurs to look beyond borders and trade in different countries of the continent. Reporting for Channel Africa in Lusaka, Zambia, I am Arthur Davis Scopo.
So, here's something that I'm sure that both of you have no idea about. And this is, I love discovering things about our continent. One of the oldest continuously operating universities is in Africa. Yes, indeed. The University of Al-Qarawiyyin in Fez in Morocco.
Oh, I thought it was in Egypt or something like that.
But it's the same sort of belt,
straight,
isn't it? It was founded in the year 859. And that's more than 11 centuries ago. And it's still active today.
Wow.
So can you imagine how many alumni there are from this university?
Billions.
That's fantastic news, isn't it? And so that's, and it's still active today. And it began as a mosque, a learning center, and it grew into a major institution of higher learning and education. And this is long before all of these famous European universities were established, and also the Harvards and the Yales and all of this. So we should always give ourselves props.
Yeah,
you know, the
With
continent.
the last civilization, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, if you look at the pyramids, the science that was required to build those things, it was long before architecture and all of those were actually even discovered as a discipline. And Great Zimbabwe, Mapungubwe, No,
Yes,
come on.
yes,
Man.
you're
No,
right.
we are leaders.
We are.
Cradle of humankind.
Exactly. And that's how we come to the end of the program, isn't it?
Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll do this again tomorrow from 6 in the morning. Get in touch with us with your questions or views on our social media platforms. Our handles are at Channel Africa 1 across all of those. I'm Asanda Beda.
And I'm Peter Ndoro, and we hand over to On the Move.
Stay tuned to Channel Africa. Stream us on our new and updated website, channelafrica.co.za.
Hey, that's how we move things on. Thanks to Peter and Asanda. Now it's time for On the Move with myself, Benjamin Mushatama and Pale Satao. But before we go ahead, let's get the latest news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin. Looking at your top stories, jihadist groups increasingly carrying out drone strikes in West Africa. And Hong Kong media tycoon and